Vice Chair Finnerty is absent. Secretary is here. Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Present.
Board Member Neely.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Can you please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any minutes, Gloria?
Yes, March 10.
March 10.
That's it? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve March 10?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. So, we're moving to Jackie, M4 Holding.
Yes, good afternoon, board members. M4 Lumber, I am still waiting on the revised common driveway plan. They were actually just submitted yesterday, but engineering did not get a chance to review them with such a quick turnover. So I'm hoping that this can be resolved at the June 23rd meeting.
So an extension to,
June 23rd.
not to 7/14.
No, they just got them yesterday, so we should be.
6/23. Okay, motion for an extension
Motion.
by Gloria, second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. Jackie, you wanted me to get you going, right? Because you have,
Yeah, I only have 3 on, so if we could move to Rhoda, which is number 14.
number 14, yep, Rhoda.
So this, we are looking at an alternative plan that we want to review with you, so we're working on those plans. I'd like to discuss that with the board at the next meeting.
Gotta use that microphone.
Oh,
Can you pull it to
this
you?
one, you want me to pull it?
Yeah.
So this would be another extension, so I can show the board the alternative plan that we are working on June 23rd. So this would be an extension of the action deadline.
To June 23rd. Okay.
Correct.
Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by George. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. And the last one, Jackie, is you have Hampton Woods,
Yes, number
site
16.
disturbance, 16.
Yep, so you can see Hampton Woods on the aerial above if you'd like to see. I did a zoomed out aerial so you can see the surrounding neighborhood. This is on Quogue Riverhead Road, or 104, as you're heading south towards Montauk Highway, so this is on the east side of the road. This is an existing subdivision that was done in the 50s, and as you can see, there was almost entire disturbance of 90%. We now have a revegetation plan, which I worked on them closely with, which you can see here, to bring the property back into compliance with the 75% requirement. And then the survey certifies that it will actually be revegetated to 66% as a result. So we went over the plan, in depth and worked closely with the landscape architect, so I am recommending that it be approved.
Has Marty seen it?
Huh?
Has Marty,
No, Marty hasn't seen it.
is that the procedure then?
No, planning generally handles these internally. We've been doing it for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's larger applications, though, with more substantial, we can definitely ask him for guidance.
My
Yeah.
understanding, though, is that Marty has given us, the planners, a list of what the native vegetation should be, depending
Yes.
upon
We
the area
utilize,
within
yeah,
the
we
town.
utilize a native planting list, and we do a reforestation list. I did a site inspection here, so I made recommendations to the applicant. They made changes based upon those recommendations. So I now have a revised plan, which I just received last week, so they're ready to go.
Okay. So we want a motion to approve this.
Yes, and I have those standard conditions that you like, making sure that it's for the 1 year, and they have to come back, yeah.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria,
Second.
second by Craig. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
All right, thank you.
And that's it for you. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Anthony, we will then 74 Priscilla Avenue.
Oh, Claire's coming.
Anthony, you're up?
Claire's gonna come and do her stuff next.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So Claire, do you want to take 361 Beach Road first?
Yeah, let's do that first. I have reports for you, the board,
Okay.
and I have plans. Here's a plan if you want sharing. I have plans in the computer too, so I'm going to put them up, but I just want to lay out the elevation for you. So you can have a perspective of that. Was there an extra,
What do you need, Claire?
nothing. I have the report with me. So this is the aerial, can you see that? On the site. And so this site's been historically used for fishing, processing, commercial fishing facility. And this is the existing, if you can see my cursor on the west side, this is the existing building that they use. They'd like to demolish this building and build a new building in this vicinity. As I understand it, they're going to remove a lot of these extraneous buildings on the property too that are just truck bodies and stuff like that. So we can ask the applicant that. I can go through the report if you'd like first, and then the applicant's representatives over here if you have any questions of them. So it is a site plan application for the demolition of existing commercial fishing packing building and the construction of a new two-story 40 by 75 commercial fish packing building and office on a 46,000 square foot parcel located in the RWB zoning district at 361 Beach Road in Hampton Bays. And this was part of what was known as the Shinnecock Fishing Village. It was like a coordinated parking layout. So as you can see, there's no, it's all interconnected with these three properties. And this is, I'm not quite sure what this is known as, but it's got a restaurant in it and multiple uses here. And this is Sundays at the Bay, the one on the east.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
kind of thought it was there, but I thought it was a little further west.
Yes, exactly. So to proceed with the application, they would need a full site plan application, site plan and details on floor plans and elevation, a short EAF, and some planning issues that I've identified and you can add to or clarify. It is an unlisted action, requires secret determination prior to the site plan being deemed complete. It is located in the FEMA flood zone, zones of BE and AE, and so they will have to comply with the flood zone requirements.
Does that mean an elevation of the building?
Yes, the building will be elevated to meet FEMA requirements, yeah. And the sanitary system in this case, they're doing a new one. It is going to be located to the south of the building and is going to be an IA system. One of the questions I had is if all the truck bodies on the property, as you can see in the aerial, are going to be removed. So that was one of my questions. They'll have to do the appearance of the building. I think it's pretty standard for that area, but we'll do a referral to the ARB in this case. Parking. So as far as I know, it's pretty easy in exchange for the use, but we'll do a parking analysis when they submit the application. But the only thing I noted is if you can see that there's this was supposed to be an aisle here
And obviously, this is not under their control, but they're all a party to this application. So we're going to put this property owner on notice that they need to put the aisle back in that case, because they've installed 2 new parking spaces here.
Is there any elevation between the properties, or is it
Nope.
pretty flat?
There is a little bit of a elevation, but it's all doable in terms of coordinated access. They supplied a truck maneuvering plan, which will be part of what we look at. That's on the site plan, I believe. Any utility will have to be screened from the streets. The lighting will have to conform to the code. I don't believe they propose any landscaping this time. I'm just verifying this, and of course, referrals will have to be made. There was no public interest at the time of the hearing for the pre-submission, so they may request a waiver of the public hearing, given that there's no residential uses around the property. So that's
Any in-water modifications to their piers or docks?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe the applicant would like to see. Do you mind staying at the podium and identifying yourself for the record?
Actually, they can come here as well. It's easier.
Okay.
Just make sure you speak into those mics.
All right. I'm Bob Terry, one of the owners of Terry Contracting.
Okay, just speak up so we can,
Okay, Bob Terry,
one of the owners.
one of the owners.
And Melissa Dedovich,
and the-
Peconic Environmental Associates, we're representing the applicants.
We did get bulkhead permits. Melissa got them actually for us through DEC and the trustees. The bulkheads are failing there, so we need to redo them.
So we'll add that then to this list.
Well,
It
we
was
have
actually-
those permits already.
And they were actually issued to the previous property owner. This was just purchased by the new applicants about within the last 2 years. Unfortunately, because of COVID, everything was kind of put on hold. But I obtained those permits and we've transferred them over, so.
So they're
They're ours.
complete, they're yours?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it's not something to do, but something you've
No,
done?
it's just easier to do it once that building is off the pier.
Then we can do the bulkheads.
Right.
It's kind of tough.
Well,
to
we'll
do.
make a note of that.
We can make a note of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and the applicable permits have been secured.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, have you been before the health department in terms of an IA system?
No, but I install them all the time as a contractor, so I'm very familiar with them. McLean they're working on the design of it right now, and they'll put them in, and we're an approved installer of them anyway.
We expect to be submitting it within the next couple of weeks.
So
I'm
you-
just thinking that with depth to water there, I've seen septics.
It's a
with
challenge,
boxes
but it's
above
doable.
ground.
I think
It's
actually-
doable there, actually. They have ways, we've done them on Meadow Lane here where it's really close to water. You can do it.
And marked up, but
And elevation, because you're in the FEMA zone, you're going to elevate that, the building?
yes,
Yes.
we're required to.
How many feet?
Well,
First floor is at 9, second floor is going to be at 26, it's elevation 26. It's similar to what's next door, and I agree with Claire, I don't know what it's called, what a restaurant.
well, it's top of the wharf,
Top of
but
the
it's
wharf,
closed.
right? It's a long time ago.
It's been closed for years.
Not as high as Sundays on the Bay and Sundays, but it's going to be close to that, but not as high because they have a peak roof. This is going to be, as you can see, more of a shallow roof. It's really for them to have an office to help all the fishermen come in, unload, take in.
We unload
keep-
the fish and then put it in trailers
Right.
every night.
And it's kind of hard during a nor'easter to get out there and be filling out your paperwork, so give them a little office to work on too. Work in.
So are you making any changes with your docks or piers in the water?
No, that's,
No.
so far, that seems like it works. We've been talking to the trustees through this. We've moved a piling or two once in a while because it accommodated the boats better, but not without talking to the trustees.
And they've been very helpful with keeping up with maintenance dredging, because after some of these storms, we have to go in and dredge, so we've been on top of
Yeah.
those permits.
Does that parking lot flood out when that dune to the south breaks down, which
It does.
happens quite a bit?
It'll end up with 2 feet of sand in it, and we've dug it out a few times.
Yeah.
For the previous owner was Cornisi,
Yeah.
and that's how I ended up. I was giving him pricing to do it, and he decided to retire and get out of it.
And not deal with the sand. What do you do with the sand after you clear
It really just goes back on the dune on the other side of the road. We
Yeah,
give it back
help
to the
the road.
town.
Actually, you've even.
Equal exchange.
Exactly. I don't know if you've ever seen them take the payloaders down there after a bad nor'easter or the hurricane. They did theirs off of the road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same
Often
thing.
in the
It's the
It's
road and
amazing.
and the parking lot.
Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away.
I'm trying to find, you have a notation for your diesel tank to be relocated on a concrete pad, but I'm
I
just
think
trying
we're
to
gonna
see
get
where it
rid
is
of it.
right now. Is there a diesel tank on site?
There is a diesel tank.
It's not shown on the plan that I'm looking at.
You can,
Oh, we may-
because we want to get rid of it. It's not worth
'Cause I was
trying
gonna-
to sell diesel.
I was gonna ask you too, I'm not sure, how does FEMA handle it if you had to keep that as far as elevations
It's
and?
been there. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to hear that the ocean came through and I got a 5,000-gallon diesel tank.
Yeah.
As far as
in
that's-
the-
My understanding though is when you have that situation, like with LP gas tanks and everything, that you're supposed to secure them, that they're supposed to be secure with concrete and everything
And
strapped
straps,
down.
We've done it for, it's not cheap, and this tank isn't in the best.
So you're saying that
condition.
you'll actually propose to get,
We're
no, just saying, I
getting rid
couldn't
of
see on the plan
It's not even
where
on.
it is right now.
So we'll make note of that, Claire.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question.
Remove the diesel tank.
Yeah, it's not shown on the new plan because we intend to get rid of it.
I think the
Can you
next-
just show where it's is
Oh,
and
maybe that's where
then
it is right now.
Right,
on the plan that
Is
you
that
submit
where
for
it
your
is
site
right
plan?
now?
yes.
So where it's shown on the plan is
Where
where
it
it is
says
right now.
relocated,
Okay.
that's where it actually
Yeah,
is.
so just label it to be removed from the
Right.
site, right? Great.
And the trailers, when you see the three long ones up there
Yeah,
in the middle,
yep, these
the
ones.
building is gonna, the one on the right that your cursor's on, that's gonna stay, that's where it gets loaded out of the building every night. And there'll be one on the other side where it'll get loaded every night. So in between will be the new
Is the
building.
building?
And then the ones shown along the property line, they just have to go, they're just junk. They're in parking spaces.
So
but
you'll clean it up.
Yes.
They're just junk.
So they're going to remove those, Claire.
Yes,
Good. Okay.
yeah, they have fishermen's nets in
The
them.
east
and-
side of the. of
The east
property.
side, yeah. No, west side.
West side.
West side.
We're getting rid of the ambiance, I'm sorry.
So those are trailers that come and go as they get loaded, they're not permanent trailers.
They haven't
So they're-
moved. The ones in the middle come and go at night. The ones along the property line,
But when you're finished with this development, the ones on the property lines are gonna.
they're
just-
going.
They'll be-
So they don't
They're
need to
gonna
be
go-
shown as permanent structures or.
They're supposed to be parking
Structures.
spaces on the side. So they're,
Okay.
So we'll make a note of that.
yeah, we're getting rid of them.
Okay.
The only thing that might go in during construction would be an office trailer. You know, that,
Which is typical.
Yes.
That's fine. You don't have to show that. That's
Right.
something the building department makes sure it's removed
right.
prior.
Um,
Okay.
And you don't envision any retail sales or anything
No.
like that? You're strictly packable? Okay.
Go to
Well-
Oakland's or Sundays on the Bay.
Yeah, we're gonna continue the packing of fish, and we've also, before I bought it, I met with the building inspector at the time, and he brought in some planning representatives about doing the use of our marine construction, loading barges or unloading occasionally, and doing the fish packing. So that was the interest, we're a marine contractor. So aside from improving the property as an investment, we wanted to continue to do what we've occasionally done down there with the previous owner, which is to load barges.
Is that reflected in this plan at all?
Not
It'll be an
presently.
open pier at the end where we can unload fish or unload other, whatever might be,
So it's a continuation of doing what you now do.
yes.
Correct.
And that's how the building department viewed it.
Do you have that?
I
Did
think
he
Dennis
give you a
gave us
report?
a letter of that, correct?
Dennis gave us a
He
letter.
gave us a letter
and-
confirming
Well,
that.
you'll submit it.
Right, so I'll
With your
change
site
the
plan.
description that says continuing the marine
Do you have that letter?
contracting.
Do you
business.
have
Do I
that?
No, not,
Okay.
not right now.
I'll make sure you have it. You got that when you were purchasing it. We got that from-
Right, we wanted to make sure that honestly, the fish thing was more than I bargained for, but we're getting through it. It's getting better.
Well, I'm glad
It was-
you're working in the area of
Yeah.
marine and fish, and that's what this community was all about at one time.
I worked down there as a kid, so I grew up in Hampton Bays, and I unloaded and loaded the trucks at night, so
Good.
it inspired me to do something else later on. It's very, very hard work.
It's hard work.
very hard work.
But the main reason also is he needs access to the water. There's not many places in Southampton that you can load barges and do work.
Right,
The wind farm people have been calling, but I don't know when I'll have this ready, so.
right.
I mean, there might be an occasion when we could load something for them, but I don't know.
So this is a pre-submission report, so we flag everything that you need to know. Anybody else, any other questions on this? So
Yeah,
you'll be
but
ready
it-
to now to proceed to a site plan?
Yeah, but it would be
Okay.
useful for, when we do the site plan application, the full scope of what you're thinking could be operational on the site would be useful to have as part of the record.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
You'll give that to
Good.
Claire.
I'm going to add an item about uses on the property
Please.
and clarify that, so
Good.
it'll be part of the.
Because even if you're talking a wind farm, they come in there with, if they're taking wind turbines and so on and off there, those things are hundreds of feet long, and
I don't see how.
but if it comes to
could be
fruition,
really
right? Yeah.
I would think maybe lunch for the people who are working. Yeah, I mean,
That would be better.
I think that stuff has got to be coming from around.
Yeah, for us,
They're
it's a
doing-
place to,
Doing something in, I think, in Port Jefferson.
Well, I was just gonna say, a
Yes.
great example is his firm handled the dredging and the work over at the Coast Guard station. So
Right,
a
we
lot
did
of-
that last
So a lot of times you need barges and everything, and they have a heck of a time. When we do dredging projects, with them trying to find access to get the barges loaded and everything. So that's another reason why we need this spot. It helps all the properties.
Of course, you don't know, Terry did the Conscience Point Marina.
that's the last time we
Right.
worked
When I was,
together.
when I was
Yeah.
town engineer,
Right.
so,
That looks pretty beautiful.
yeah.
Are there any other questions? Okay, a motion to adopt the pre-submission report as amended. Motion by Tom, second by Gloria, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. Thanks very much. Good
Thank
luck
you
with
very
it.
much.
Thank
See
you.
We'll see you when you come back for site plan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Claire,
welcome.
North Sea Tavern,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
that's Kyle.
It is Kyle.
Kyle, sit at the table. It's better for audio and it's better for us.
Perfect. I like it.
So this is a little packet for you, a little updates. You had asked Kyle when he was here last time. I'm gonna just take this plan off. Sure.
For a list.
For a list, so he's provided that. And also a updated plan. It showed we had talked about the tents, the outdoor seasonal tents, and they do want to do that. So now the plan reflects that. So that's the plan in front of you, so.
And we've also added a resolution that a recommendation we're gonna send to the town board about timed parking on Parish.
Yep.
Good.
And I think you
I
decided on
listened-
3 hours.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
particularly if somebody goes in to eat. You know, you can't do it in 2. I mean, everywhere it's like 2 hours and it's like, what? It's like,
What?
it's like you're
That's
like this.
second bottle of wine, Jack.
It's like going to the movies in East
Yeah,
Hampton.
the movie's in Southampton,
It's
you know,
like-
the movie is an hour and 40 minutes.
And you're sprinting out of there
And you're
before.
racing. And if there are, anyway.
Excuse me.
Okay, so
Tree
let's
pollen.
You
go
want to
over
do the
these.
town board one first?
Sure.
Okay. So that is pretty straightforward. I just mentioned that you had been reviewing an application for North Sea Tavern, and that while reviewing the application, the planning board noted parking on the south side of Parish Road. And I'm sorry, I actually was going to attach this. But the aerial, oh, actually, do I have the aerial? Aerial very clearly shows 3 parking space, 3 cars parking on the aerial, so I'm going to attach that. Did I attach an aerial here?
And I think if you
Oh, I
look
think I
at
might have.
historical areals, you'll see more than 3 cars parked there
Yeah.
all day long.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least it gives an example.
Well,
Oh, I do
the
here.
cars on that car repair.
So there's one,
Exactly.
in this aerial, you
Yes.
can see 1. But the latest one that I have from 2021 shows 3.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send that to the board too,
Okay.
so they
I-
see it.
I think we need to just give some legislative intent here.
Mm-hmm.
That the idea is to formalize and legalize some of these spaces.
Okay. I'll suggest to the town board to place a 3-hour limitation on the parking in said area to formalize and legalize these
Legalize,
spaces.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we want to provide any guidance or suggestion as to how long the 3-hour parking restriction, the distance
Oh, okay.
should be? I know.
Oh, you mean from
you know,
something to something?
Right,
Yeah.
from,
I was
you know,
gonna
from the
suggest-
intersection up 200 feet or
Oh, yeah,
150
that's a good
feet or.
idea.
Why don't you go to the zone
That
line?
was one of the issues we always
Okay.
wrestled with
Okay,
in this kind of a
excellent.
situation.
Yeah, go to the
Mention it,
zone
Tom.
line. Go to the zone line.
Where's the zone? Oh,
The red.
The red?
Right.
The red here
That's basically where the
From the
available parking
intersection
is available. But
to the zone line.
To the zone line.
yeah.
Yeah, because then it looks like
Good,
you've got a
Tom, that's
driveway.
great.
on
That's
private
great.
property.
From the intersection on North Sea to the zone line, right?
Yeah.
On Parish. Okay. So Kyle, why don't you just go over the list of 10 things with us?
Sure. Reconfigure the parking lot that currently has 5, and it will remain to have 5 conforming spaces. Now there's no ADA space. There will be an ADA space after the reconformance. That's number 1. Remove a non-conforming dumpster enclosure. That dumpster enclosure was installed, I don't know how many years ago, but it doesn't meet the current standards in terms of setbacks or its enclosure itself, because there's standards under the code. They're actually going to move into a garbage enclosure area that's next to the building, and it actually functions better for the operation. So they're going to do that. There's some existing pavers of 140 square feet of existing paved patio that's within the setbacks, going to be removed along the eastern property line. And then is to provide the outdoor seasonal dining space, which will total 750 square feet. Right now, there's an existing sidewalk, very wide actually, which is 160, so they're gonna add 590 for a total of 750. That area is gonna be enclosed by 2-foot wide planters. The proposed 20 by 7 by 20 by, 27 by 27 seasonal tent for, over the outdoor dining. And then some evergreen plantings along both the eastern and northern property lines.
So the
This-
seasonal, sorry, the seasonal tent is what, like June or May to October? What?
We were proposing actually from St. Patrick's Day to Halloween.
As long as it's the 180
less than
days.
180 days.
Okay.
So whatever makes 179.
Okay.
That's March to October.
So we have to fill that in.
We'll have to
That's
do,
only March till September, so you have to decide which way you want it.
I would say April to maybe Columbus Day. How about that? We can figure
what I
that out,
said.
but April, yeah.
April
that
to
would-
October.
15th
Yeah.
April 16th to October 16th,
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever that works out to be,
Right.
that's fine.
And do we know how many people the outdoor is?
30 seats.
Okay, we should put that there.
Yes,
There.
30. It's shown on the seating plan that was
But
prepared.
let's add it to the language.
Yeah.
30 seats, number 4.
Yeah, I'm just going to add a finding about the rated occupancy inside, which, do you know off the top of your head, Kyle, is?
I think it's on Lisa's plans here, but it is based on what the fire marshal has for the building.
And Claire, add the language about the seasonal inspection from the fire marshal.
Yep.
But I don't have the occupancy, but it does clearly state on the seating plan that currently there's 60, well, there'll be 30 seats that will be removed from the building and then outside on a seasonal basis.
Right, so they're taking 30 from inside, putting them outside.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll make note of that number, Claire.
Yeah, I'll have a finding to that effect, and I'll state what the rated occupancy is, so it's legal.
listed here.
Is there?
60 and
Claire,
Yeah, it's 60.
30 and 30 out.
You're right, it's 60, correct, in that rear dining area, correct.
Claire, do you have a plan on there with the parking layout, or is that, I just see you have a gravel parking, I don't see the parking layout per se.
This is existing, and then this is.
And then there's
proposed.
a proposal for the wait station window to serve the rear outdoor seating.
Is that on here?
Yep, shown on the plan and on the
Oh, install a
elevations.
service window.
Yeah. And then the vestibule on the front of the building, 13 by 8.
Is that gonna, that's the North Sea Road.
Correct.
So,
When we
what-
came,
what does that do to parking?
oh, there's no
Internal?
occupancy. No, it's a canvas vestibule. It's not an addition that requires a building permit. It's really just to keep wind from going in and out, that type
It's
of,
over existing deck,
yeah.
so it's just a
The
little.
front deck.
Yes.
You can picture that in the city?
Yeah.
They do that? Yeah.
I was thinking it was a bit protrusion.
No. It's
Okay.
over existing deck. Sorry. And that's it.
Kyle, do they intend to have outdoor heaters?
Um,
Not on the, they cannot under the tent.
They cannot under the tent.
For the fire
Fire
code.
code.
Yes.
So St. Patrick's Day to Halloween
But
would
April.
be,
Well, it's gonna be.
And is
after
it-
It's not going
Yeah,
to
you
be,
can't do it
it's going
then.
to, because it's 180 days, so
You'll
it'll
just-
be April to
You'll serve
October.
beer and corned beef and cabbage in April.
Exactly.
wear a sweater.
Any other questions? Okay, we're all agreed. Expedited review with all of these items being covered. And a resolution to the town board.
The resolution to the
Okay.
town, so 2 actions, please.
2 actions. So the first is for the expedited review.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Gloria and second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. And the second is to submit a resolution to the town board for formalized parking on Parish. Motion
Motion.
by George, second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
Excellent.
Good
Thank
luck,
you so
Kyle.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for wearing a tie, Kyle.
You like that?
I'm the only one, me and you.
Where's the title? Shoot, that was that.
Claire, singular,
Yes, singular's
number
off
8.
the agenda. It will be on for the next meeting.
I'm sorry, it's off?
It's
It
on.
is off.
It's gonna be on for the 23rd.
But just to ask you about that.
Sure.
These are 12 additional antennas on an existing pole.
On an existing.
Are they in-
not.
This is an external, one of the old ones?
This is, I think, kind of a lattice tower.
Is this the one on Middle Line Highway in Millstone?
No, this is Great Hill Road.
Oh, duh, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually never had a site plan, that's why you're seeing it.
Uh-huh.
What happens is it does require a site plan approval. If you just putting antennas up to 6, it just needs a building permit. Over 6, it needs site plan approval. And we have been doing these expedited, admin, but there's no site plan on this, so this is
So we
your
need a
first
site
look
plan.
ever at this site, and so.
It's that old?
It is that old. It is. The only way you've ever looked at this site is that they asked for some additional clearing because it has the old-fashioned, also old guy wires supports, and you allowed for some additional clearing at one point back in 2006. You reviewed that, but not a site plan. So
Do we know who's on the tower? Will we get a list of all the
We can.
co-locators?
I can ask that question.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that area is in serious need of cell tower coverage.
Yeah, so this is an addition. I think this is the first time AT&T New Sinclair is going
Yeah.
on this, so this should help.
Yeah, I mean, they were originally going to have early voting at SYS,
Oh,
and they couldn't because there was not good enough cell service
Internet.
because they used laptops.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Hopefully that's made solve the problem here.
That's where we're at the college.
Excellent.
So this is, do we need an extension on this, or just?
Not at all.
No.
They just submitted it.
Okay, so it's to, the
and it
next,
can
to
be
June
just on to the
23rd.
next one. Yep.
Okay, number 9, Pominack Group, Corrigan.
This is what was the Corrigan's auto repair place in,
Watermill?
I have an aerial of this one.
This the one on the corner with all those uses?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They'd started work already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
saw that today.
yeah.
Yeah, so they started work and they were unaware that they needed a site plan and/or building permits for this. So they do. When you change windows and doors, you redoing siding, you need a site plan. And this is another one that's never had a site plan before. So this is your first look at it. I think generally they're improving the property, which is good. And we do encourage people to come through for a site plan in that case. However, this has been so non-conforming for so long in terms of, as you can see, they park all over the place, on and off the property, no setbacks. It could be, you know, if somebody's coming to this intersection, it could be, you know, problem that there's so much parking occurring, the activity in the area. So I think we'd want to get a handle on this site plan. They've submitted, I'm going to give you the site plan they submitted. The applicant's representative is here.
We did look at this one other time when they came in. I remember the number of uses was beyond what the CO said.
They were going to do a draft, they were going to do a change of use. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use in the zoning district. There's a couple aerials if you want to see it closer. And so they were coming in for a redevelopment of the property.
You can share.
There's a site plan and a little indication of what they're doing on the property, like a rendering. I think we would need more elevations of what they're doing. They're taking that overhead door, they're making it to windows. Like the site
Yeah.
plan rendering.
That's the new name?
And they're renaming it, right?
You can sit at the table.
It is. Yes.
I did get a call from the fire marshal. They do want to weigh in on this application, as does the town engineer. As you can see, they're doing some improvements to the gravel, and we probably want some drainage on the property. I'm not quite sure of the position of the drainages on the property, so.
Rest of their. Welcome, please state your name for the records.
Sure. Heather Wright, attorney for the applicant. I'm here with a member of the principal of the owner of the property, Jeff Simpson.
Welcome.
So just to give you a little background, my client recently purchased this property, and I say recently, it was May 31st, I think was the date, or around there.
That's brave.
But the intention here is really to clean up a site that has been in sort of disarray for some time. So I can even show you to this point, you know, we've really turned it around. You know, our goal is to.
That was yesterday with the drone.
So this is, you know, to obviously.
They do, is that a drone photo?
There's a drone photo, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we did it yesterday, we'll have to keep it as, but you could see, if you look at that versus this.
Cleaned
Yeah,
up.
We've
cleaned
got
it
rid
up.
of-
You know, we planted trees here, you know, the siding and the roofing has been improved. If you looked at, if I've been by there, there were tarps over the roofs
Yes.
on some of the buildings. There was a wall that was coming down and kind of rotted that's been replaced. You know, the right-of-way is clear. So, you know.
So you've cleaned up with
Oh,
a
yeah.
A lot.
site plan approval, but you know you need site plan.
Well, yeah, and we do, and that's why we're here. And we've already submitted building permit applications for everything that's been done. There was a little bit of confusion. My client did go, he owns a lot of properties out here, and everything on those properties has been done with proper permits. Prior to buying this, we did some due diligence, and I think there was some conflicting information about what we needed in order to clean up the site, and maybe not enough clarity on what clean up the site means, right? So when we learned we needed the permits, they're in Sean's hand now, and we made this application here. I mean, the main thing is that this is an ongoing business. We're not changing the use here.
So there are several uses though, right?
Yeah, but if you look at the existing CO, that's staying the
We
same.
looked at that CO once, remember?
Right,
Yeah.
so it's a repair garage, auto repair, auto rental, auto sales. That's what's going on.
And the apartment.
And the apartment.
Existing conditions apartment that's
Oh,
upstairs.
now I know where
That's
it is.
currently
Auto rents,
occupied.
it just clicked.
Yeah.
But the tenant is leaving, and, you know, obviously, any apartment use will require a permit, and we'll be getting, if we do rent the apartment, getting a rental permit. So we really are
We'll keep
trying here.
an apartment.
We plan to keep the apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no enlargement of the buildings, there's no additions to the buildings, there's no
Change of
removal of
footprint.
buildings. Everything is,
No
if you
change
saw a
to-
survey from 10 years ago, it was exactly the same.
We're not
intent
changing
is-
the grading at all.
May I ask you to, one of you to hold that up?
Oh,
so
sorry.
All of us can
Absolutely.
see it. 'Cause
Sorry about that. And we have some other views that we want to see.
We don't have an easel or anything.
That
Or
help?
town.
Sorry about that.
Better?
Yeah, yeah.
You ever get back into the habit of being live, right?
Put it on the wall.
Yeah, we would have had them
So
mounted,
you're gonna
but-
try to formalize the
Don't be
parking
too far
here.
away.
Yeah.
You have close up, it's hard that you don't even have a curb cut, you just have an open swath of
Well,
land.
there are curb cuts along 27. There's a curb cut here, there's one here, and there's one down here. And there is a curb continuous across. Along the Windmill Lane side, you can see the differentiation right there. There's a curb cut here, that's here. And then this has one of those rolled pavement curbs that is existing. I did reach out to the Highway Department, as Claire asked me to do. They had no interest, other than they said, don't touch anything from the curb into the street. This is along the town property. This is state, and I didn't mention anything because there's no real change here.
Right.
We mentioned we wanted to repair the pavement, reseal the pavement. Was there anything that they would need? And they said they had no requirements on their side.
On the town side.
On the town side, and we didn't have any intent to do anything here. This is mostly gravel here, and this, we were just gonna put a sealer on it. We weren't gonna strip it, we weren't gonna regrade it, we were just gonna put a top coat
Make it
sealer.
look a little nicer.
Yeah, it
yeah.
would be nice to have some street trees or something, just to keep in keeping with, or to make it look a lot better than what it is, this sort of open, we're trying to get away so much from these long, open areas where you just see cars. So go ahead, I'm sorry. So
So-
you've cleaned up compulsively, and,
Oh, yes. Large bills from Maggio to prove it. But essentially, the idea is that there's a grade change. This is much lower over
Is
here,
it? Yeah.
existing, and that's really entered from here. And if you see like that picture, there were loads of cars everywhere here. We got rid of all that, mostly
what's in
junk.
there? What's in there?
This is a repair shop that has been approved many years ago. We plan to continue this repair shop.
Repair shop,
Our goal is to have a, lack of a better term, a nostalgic car repair environment where we have cars for sale that are high-end type of beach vehicles, convertibles, trucks that are, as you see in the Hamptons, and that they could also have the repairs done on site. We have an application with Department of Motor Vehicles. There was a licensed car sales here. We plan to continue that. The same with car repair. So we can't transfer those licenses. We put an application with Department of Motor Vehicles. We should have it next week, I'm told. And the repairs will continue in here and down here. We're not looking to stockpile cars for repair along the street. As you can see here, like this is a high-end Triumph that we put here that we want to sell, but we're keeping everything off of here. Any repair vehicles or disruptional vehicles would be down here where you can't see it from the street. These are cars that are for sale, that would be along the road, keeping a limited amount, like very limited. And then Hertz, which has been here for years and is on the CO as well, we have extended a new license agreement with them. It's not a lease. They've had a license agreement here for like 25 years. It's not transferable as a new owner, so we entered a new agreement with Hertz consistent with what's in the CO. And we've told the Hertz folks, we're going to keep all of the Hertz cars consolidated, not on the cemetery, not over here. Everything is going to live in one specific location with proper signage so that we don't have the mess that we saw when we started this thing. So you'll see the application was made under the prior owner. In our contract, we had the permission to make submissions, which we sent that contract in.
And the deed I can submit, so you can.
And since the time has passed, we closed on the property now. So, we are the new owner. It's a different name under LLC. But now we're able to do everything we need to do. It was a transition for some time. There's two gentlemen owned this for 37 years, and
Yeah.
some push and pull to get it to a better place.
So, I'm sorry, Claire, so,
I appreciate your reference to not parking on the street and I was involved when that last couple 100 feet became one-way. Used to be two-way,
Oh, yeah.
Right here.
and we created it as one-way, and I think your predecessor kind of took that striped area to become his property. And there was a lot of driving on it, a lot of parking on it, cars, using it as their own little private drive.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can respect that, that would be,
The police was there not because of me, because of prior ownership only last week or 2 weeks ago, and advised the prior owner he cannot leave cars there.
Right.
And they called me, and I said to the police officer, I said, I now own the property. I have nothing to do with these cars. I want nothing to do with that. It's illegal. And the police nicely told the gentleman, you have to remove it, and he did. But we will never do that again. We're not interested. I own a house here personally. My family has a house here. My business partner has a house here. We have permits and approvals on all of our homes. We like to do everything compliant, and we want to be up to snuff. I'm sorry for the confusion on the front end. We did stop in the building department. There was
Yeah,
a
well-
transition with Mr. McDermott taking over the new role, and there was some confusion as to what permits would or wouldn't be needed, and we have clarity now. We put together the full package. I was in just last week again. We've met with Mr. McDermott several times. We've given him a full checklist of everything he asked for. The only thing, of course, is subject to planning board, which we said we would be meeting with you guys. Thank you to Claire, so.
So Claire, what's the best process here for them
The
to?
question before you is whether you want to process this expedited, which means no public hearing. You could provide a 30-day written comment period, and you could start that immediately, but I do think they need information. We need elevations of the
We need
improvements.
elevations, we need buffers, we need
I
trees,
love
we
that
need
they've done
parking.
landscaping. We just need to have that shown. And as he's reflecting, he wants certain areas to be outdoor display, storage, which he's entitled to. Let's get that defined, you know. So I actually did a checklist of what he'd need to do, but if you want to provide a comment period in the meantime, and if you do get comments, then we'll have a public hearing. So it's up to you, you know, the board collectively. But we do want to encourage them to, you know, quickly update this. I think it's a good thing, but it's up to the board whether
It is,
public
but there are
hearing.
some site plan issues here. I mean, I'm
100%.
reluctant to continue with expedited reviews unless we can actually impose site plan requirements here. So.
Maybe like Kyle had done with North Sea, he came up with a very specific what they're doing on the, have done, which would be under site plan, and are going to do on the site plan. That might be helpful for you to have that information.
We'd be willing to do that. The expedited review is important to us because obviously this is a busy time of year and, you know, we're trying to continue a business here. So, you know, we're not opposed to, you know, working with you, and our goal is the same as your goal, which is to improve this site. So, you know, anything that we could do to expedite it would be greatly appreciated.
Like, for example, you have dilapidated siding throughout the property. I could waste the money to paint everything, but we're using, like, for example, before we knew that a permit was required because it's zoned residential, and forget the confusion, you know, this was a made-back, you know, cedar shake that we started to use, and, you know, Sean had mentioned this, we should stop, but we could finish the elevation for waterproofing reasons, and we did. So you could sort of see it before and after, right? This is after, this is before. I could go waste the money to paint all this, which we don't need permits for in the interim, because I don't want to have a presentation of this to the street. I don't want to own a property that looks dilapidated. I own properties in 9 states. I'm not a slumlord. I don't own distressed properties that, once I buy them, I clean them and do the right thing. So I can go and do all of that, but, you know, I think to Heather's point, you know, we're not actually changing it, right? Like, we're not, if we didn't buy the property, it would stay as it is for the next whoever many years, right?
We know that.
And we have to basically force their hand to close, believe it or not, to give them money. So we're just trying to finish what we started, and if you want us to be more specific about locations and signage, I did indicate on the site plan where those uses would be. We did indicate the parking areas. We showed that on the site plan.
I don't see parking layout. I don't see your area
It's not
display.
striped or anything, because
No,
it's-
we
it's
would need
gravel.
that. We'd need that.
We can provide that. You
Yeah.
know, we have no problem providing that.
And one of the biggest issues, if we're looking at this property and it's coming before us, is to close up this expanse of gravel asphalt that faces the road.
We don't mind putting trees in, that's okay. We're more than happy to do so.
Buffer, trees, something that's presentable, especially if you're selling high-end cars. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just
Tom?
was agreeing with you.
George.
There was a comment earlier about this is being changed to windows. That's not true. This is a garage door, staying as a garage door. The rendering shows a new garage door. It's just a rendering. You know, it's not, this is an active driveway. There's cars being repaired every day. So we're not looking to change that, still be a garage door.
And you're Rever Motors now? Is that it?
That's the new name, yes.
Rever Motors.
Mhm.
So we need to look at a sign as well.
Correct. We were told we couldn't make sign applications until this process started, so we didn't.
Right.
Sorry.
The elevations?
What was this?
Oh, that's a side view. That's a side view that is a
Facing?
rendering. I'm sorry, let me just look at that one more time. That would be, It's actually, it's actually over here. Yeah, it's this way. Let me see if I have another picture for them. I believe I
So
do.
visible when you're driving east.
You can't see it because it's so far back. It's hard to see from this picture. The building's situated on an angle.
I would like to understand.
Here we go. It's over here. Which is,
Yeah.
And they start doing.
Right. I think that's a fair ask. I'd like to see some kind of formalized, parking lot situation that has, clear entrance, exits. and
Although that
flow.
has to be formalized and closed.
We have no problem formalizing any of the items that you have concerns about, but what we would like to do, and the reason for the expedited, is so that we could continue to clean it up, at least from the elements that, my client was talking about with respect to the buildings and, so it doesn't look so in disrepair.
we didn't finish the roof here. They asked us not to. So I could have leaks in the building, that's an active building. We want to use a standing seam metal roof, which is quite expensive and pretty typical along the 27 corridor. And most of the neighbors have that type of roof. We're looking to use high-end quality materials, which are consistent and conforming to the neighborhood, which I imagine has been through the board here. So those are the kinds of things that we want to continue with. We're not going to do anything on the fields of the property without your permission. We would never. And we're happy to take another stab at it and show them a presentation with
Of
the
course, yeah.
architect. And,
We can
Okay.
go
you know.
off of the checklist and
We
get
haven't
you to
seen the
park.
checklist.
No, I just did it.
Can we hear it?
Yes.
Can we see it?
Yes.
That'd be good.
Everyone can see it, because I made multiple copies.
Yay.
It's-
Did you receive a stop work order?
Yeah, well, so it was interesting, I don't want to go backwards and what people here said, is we had a conversation with Mr. Kanji. He came by the property.
Right.
He asked what was happening. We showed him. He said, I'm not giving a stop work order. I would like for you to submit a permit. It's gray if a permit is necessary. Then there was a comment of site planning, that maybe we need to come into here. And he said, could you please put together a set of drawings? I drew them myself. I submitted them within two days. I did it myself in 2 days. And then he came in to give a stop work order, which I said, I don't understand. And I asked for Mr. McDermott to meet with me, and he did the next day with Mr. Kanji.
Yeah.
And I think there was an understanding that there's some sort of miscommunication, because everything was submitted
Right.
clearly. There was emails, there was stop-ins to communicate with Mr. Kanji, and I can't explain why that happened, but we did everything
Were
we were
you
supposed to do.
fined as well?
We paid a fee, our
Double
permit
the-
fee was supposed to be
double the
2,000,
permit
they
fee.
charged us 4,000. I just said last week, I'll pay it, I don't care, I'm not gonna argue it. So yes, we paid a fine, $2,000. So.
But I think it's worth noting that a number of the neighbors have come by and have expressed,
Gratitude.
yes,
Yes.
much gratitude.
Everybody's been happy with what's happening
Well, it's
there.
an extremely visible site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a corner, it's an entrance there.
Yeah.
So I cannot emphasize enough greenery, trees. I don't know what we do about all the curb cuts. Claire, I don't know how this helps us.
Don't look at the checklist. That's what they needed to provide us, and some of them have X's. That's,
Oh, okay.
let's go over the comments part. That's where you show area of outdoor display, which you were talking about, especially your Hertz, where you're going to put the Hertz as the rental cars. I think that'd be important. I added that. The fire prevention, where the hydrant is, that's minor. But the parking and the parking calculations, you'll have to put that on there. You probably are conforming, you may not be, but whatever it is, you'll be pre-existing. So don't worry about if you're under your parking requirement. Information on lighting. We have no building elevations, we have a rendering. We need to know what the materials, the colors, and.
We did that.
Because it's going to be quite different than the white building that was there.
Right.
So that's just accurate, so that we can possibly do, ARB has looked at this yet? The ARB has
No.
looked?
No,
No,
I mean,
but we did provide elevations. I prepared them
Right,
myself.
to the building department, but not us.
Did we not give them to them?
no, we did, they were in
We
the
did.
package.
They were in the
yeah.
package.
I
They were submitted.
don't see them, sorry.
Yeah, they were.
They were definitely produced and
But-
sent in, yes.
But
I-
that being said, I mean, we're willing to do all this. The idea was, we were told by the chief building inspector, listen, you got to get into planning. So we literally got into, thanks to Claire, we were able to get in here like at the next, we submitted last week and we're here now. So part of the reason we wanted to get in here so quickly was so that we could hear from you and figure out what else, what you're thinking about the site, what you're thinking about what's been done so far, and what we can do to move this forward as quickly as we can.
So Claire, let's add landscape plan to
Yep.
your list.
Yep.
Analyze curb cuts,
Mm-hmm.
signage,
Mm-hmm.
Is there any existing light? They used to have an illegal light there, but that's gone, that's down.
It's been removed.
Yeah,
It was-
has to.
The wires
Oh.
were still there, and I was told by the prior owner that he was asked to do it, and he
Yeah, it's
disconnected
against
it,
code,
which
yeah.
is good, yes.
But you may want some other light, and we have a lighting code.
I would love to have lighting. There is
That-
none.
That is 10-foot poles, downward light, no light trespass.
Yeah.
What
So
about
these are all
a
s-
drainage plan?
Well, that's by a town engineer, right? So, yes.
I would suggest a meeting with the town engineer
Yeah.
about the scope of what you're doing and whether there's any drainage on the property. It would be needed to be taken care of, obviously.
Sure, I mean, again, though, the scope of what we're doing, we're not really doing anything other than improving what's existing. I just
Yeah,
want to be
but-
clear.
I
No,
I understand that, but you're new owners, you're here, it's our job to look at
course.
sites for site plan, it's our job, that's
No, I
what we
know.
do. You know, and the big question, of course, too, is environmentally. Is there stuff in the ground here from years and years? Did
We had
you have
inspected.
an environmental
Yes.
review?
We had it inspected by
Can you,
Eastern.
can you give us a report?
Yeah, we can give the Eastern report that,
Yeah.
we have a commercial lender, the bank that made a loan for us, and they asked Eastern to do a full report, and,
So they did an environmental review?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, we need a copy of that.
With borings. We did borings
Good.
as well.
There's no tanks in the
It's
ground?
clean, it's
Yeah,
clean.
nope.
Yeah, Mike Flynn did that for us a few weeks back.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
anything more?
By the way, there was a closure permit that was done through the town of Southampton, about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We found it in the foil, that they did go through the process. They filed for a permit to close the tanks that were there, because this was a.
They filled them and left them in place, or did they remove them?
I don't remember what the report
Alright.
said, but it was
The
not,
report
it
will
was,
tell you.
there was no, the report has it there. There was an application, they got a certificate of compliance for the work that was done. So it got inspected and got signed
Right,
off.
well, that will tell you clearly what
Yeah.
they did, because there were two ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Pull it out.
Right.
Or fill it up and bury
I
it.
believe they removed them, that's what I believe the report said. But that happened many years ago, like either 90s or early 2000s, properly.
Okay, so any other points that we want for site plan?
I admire what you're doing and appreciate what you're doing, but, you know, we can't circumvent process to the extent where it's just like, yeah, go ahead. You know, that some of these things obviously need to be checked off.
And Claire, because they're not changing the curb cuts, this would not go to the DOT, right? It would only go if we were changing curb cuts. You were doing something with it.
So you want to keep that rear one on the side street?
Absolutely.
And
With
two on the
logistics.
front.
Yeah, the logistics really, because of the grade change, that goes downhill.
That would
So
slow it down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't want to grade anything that's going to cause major water
Hard to
issues.
know where the curb cuts actually are too, can I
Yeah, you can really only tell by the picture.
So,
But
you know,
show you
maybe
the
when you,
photo.
when you do the site plans at some point, you kind of identify where the curb cuts actually are.
Yeah.
It's hard right now, it's
No
just a
problem.
continuous curve. right?
No problem. If you even like to see here, I mean, you can almost see, there's one there, there's one over here, and there's one there, all existing. And you can see how it's lower here. This is all
So
downhill.
5-6 feet lower.
Yeah.
That's because the state repaved, but didn't mill down what was there.
Right.
So they basically lifted the asphalt up to the level of the curb cut almost.
Here's a little bit
This is
of.
the top of the curve.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
better
You
view.
see, it's really a naked triangle.
If they ever mill it away and start again, then you'll really see the curb cuts.
Ugly.
I see, yeah.
Better with nothing on it. It was loaded with junk.
And to Jackie's point, I think the fact that the previous owner just had cars all lined up along the front.
Yeah.
Kind of like hard to tell, were there curb cuts?
Right.
Oh, for sure.
That
for
was
sure.
the buffer.
I mean, we literally
Oh,
pulled
but-
cars with frozen brakes. They've been sitting there so many years.
Okay, so this is a pretty detailed list, it's a lot. So maybe, not maybe, we'll ask you to come back
Of course, yeah.
quickly as you want with showing us a plan about what they're gonna be doing with all of these ingredients,
I
right?
think that's a fair ask.
Claire, you've got them all?
Yeah,
It sounds like you're lucky to be able to respond pretty quickly.
So how
It's-
quickly do you want to come back? Do you want, we have a meeting June 26th, 23rd?
23rd.
yeah, I mean, if we
that
get it
list-
done,
that list is
let's
doable.
do June 23rd, and then if we can't get it, I'll write a letter, but I would like to keep this moving, because I think it's.
Okay, so just keep Claire in the loop, because she needs time to review it, and then we need time to get it and to review it, so don't wait till the last minute. Is June 23rd enough time?
I mean, the engineer who helped us with the plan turned it around in 24 hours last time. I don't know how busy he is right now, so I'll call him after this
Yeah.
meeting and see. But I'll try to meet with him tomorrow.
Okay,
Try to-
landscape plan.
Yes, understood.
So,
I mean, we generally get paperwork Friday before the Thursday. Claire needs,
Yes.
I need time.
she needs
Yeah,
time
I get yelled
before
at.
that, so.
of course. I guess the question
Claire, you
I
have,
have is
I
the
made all
building
those
permit,
notes. You made all
the
those
building
notes?
permit
I did,
applications
make
that we
all
have in
those
now
notes.
to
Thank
bring
you.
up the buildings. Can we proceed with that, so that we can, fix the roof and get rid of the tarp and that minor stuff? Because right now, the building permits are being held up, obviously,
But
because.
the roof is gonna be standing seam metal?
This is all shingle, and if you looked at the plans I we proposed to do standing seam metal here. If there's an objection, it could be asphalt shingles. But, we're open to
It
it.
needs ARB review and then landmarks. I'm not quite sure if we've gone to landmarks yet, because this is older than 1940.
But we can do a very, very simple expedited review for the roofs, because that's what they want, to keep the thing dry.
Yeah, roof and siding, because
Needs
there are
ARB
breaches
and
too.
landmarks.
Is this, we need landmarks for this?
1940. or
What's
more-
1940?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a plan, we can refer it, if the planning board's amenable, but it's not going to be
It's not gonna be tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that still keeps you on hold for the roof. So get everything, I think your best course of action pragmatically is to go through this list,
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
Because we
we
need,
saw it.
we need a plan to refer
right.
to the other boards.
So it's gotta go to landmarks and it's gotta go, geez.
No good deed.
It's a,
No,
it's a
but
process,
it's the
unfortunately, but we
it's
are
the
trying to help you
process.
out.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
It's the
I understand
process.
that.
It would be different if you were replacing in kinds, obviously that would be something, a different animal.
It is in kind. There were shingles there. The
Standing
replacement.
seam.
So I'll do shingles here. I'll forget standing seam, I'll do shingles. I mean, I'm serious. It cost me a tenth of the price. I'll do shingles if people are happy with like in kind. That's what it was.
Well, it's
That's what it was.
just- it's just
That's
that-
building paper.
So, I mean,
So-
that's
It's a
is
it's a
that an
process,
option?
Well, you said it's like in kind, and that's the conversation I had in your office. We're not changing new window openings. We're not putting in new punches. We're not replacing buildings, right? And that's where the confusion started in the front end. This is not windows. This door is staying. All the access points are staying on the building itself, right? So that's where even in conversations a couple days ago, the building department, why do you need a permit? They asked me that question. They even asked me again, why do we need a permit? So
well,
that's
let's
where
get
this has gone,
past-
this
let's
has gone
get-
back and
yeah,
forth.
so
You need a permit.
let's get past that, and we appreciate you working with us to
Yeah.
try to move this forward. So if we could, if replacing it in kind, exactly in kind is doable,
If Claire can check that and find out how,
It is, that's more, that's.
okay, so
yes.
if you replace the roofs on those specific buildings in kind,
Yes.
we can do an expedited review for just the roof.
100%.
Is it possible we look at the siding as well? Because we have breaches of.
Just the
of
roof to
weather.
secure the building, and then we can proceed with the list of the rest remaining.
Siding
of the-
would have to
Okay.
Okay, so we
Fine,
can
okay.
pass
I
a
can write that now.
resolution
okay,
here,
that'd be great.
just for the roof, okay?
Was it the roof specifically that triggered the stop work?
No.
I
There
don't
was
know what
other
he,
components. I can go through them, but there was a lot.
There was a lot of stuff that was going
again,
on.
I met him on site both times, and he said he's not giving me a stop work order, but okay, we're not gonna go there.
He needs a permit.
Then he changed his
Yeah.
mind.
So I'm gonna do a resolution to replace the roof in
In
kind.
kind.
Your permission, that if he needs any other reviews, that's with the building department. Okay?
Okay,
That's great.
and then we'll schedule you for June 23rd to
And
come
if we need
back
more time, I'll write
with
down.
all of the site plan ingredients that we want to take a look at, okay? So, Claire,
Yes.
we'll pass
Resolution?
that?
Yeah.
Resolution for just replacing the roof in kind for Rever, how do you say it?
Revere Motors.
Revere Motors,
We're putting this under 1640 Montauk
Montauk.
Highway going.
1640 Montauk
LLC.
Highway.
1640 Montauk LLC is the new entity.
Yeah, I know.
1640
Montauk, LLC.
Montauk Highway
No, not highway,
LLC.
just Montauk.
It's Montauk LLC.
Montauk LLC.
Yeah,
Montauk.
that's what the new deed says.
Okay, so motion for that?
Motion.
Craig, second by Gloria, all in favor? Opposed,
Aye.
abstentions?
Just for the roof, right?
Just for the roof, yeah, just for the roof in kind. So we have 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. Good luck,
Because
get it
you still need to
sorted.
make a
Appreciate your
application,
time.
permit to the building department for the roof?
Yes.
It's all part of that application. It's already been submitted.
You're gonna just have to separate it out if you wanna.
Yeah, we'll reach out to them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Claire, you have the Shinnecock Hills Golf Club. That was the one addition, I mean,
Yes, so that one is,
number 10.
in that case, I've inspected the site and it seems to be in order with the landscaping. So they have a maintenance bond of a landscaping price of about $2,580, and then your maintenance bond would be a third of that, so for $860. I'll write the resolution for it, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Okay?
Any
So-
questions? Motion?
I drove by there this morning on my way to the bank.
Yes, that's nice. Motion for that by Gloria, second by George,
second,
all
yeah.
in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. CVS, Claire?
Yes.
This is a
This
discussion.
has been a little while, before COVID. I'm going to bring up a plan that we,
Come.
okay, thank you.
CBS, something.
Sorry to have my,
It's all right, Claire, leave it. You're entitled to use the table.
I know. The chairs are new,
Yeah.
right?
That's about all.
Yeah.
Hi, good, how are you?
Sorry, I
Here's
don't need to be so snide.
plan, but I'm gonna put it up.
No, that wasn't slided. Thank you.
Oh, hey, how you doing? Hi, board
shade in
members.
Hi.
How are you?
shade in there.
If you don't mind sharing, there's another.
No, we're
one.
good. All right.
Hi.
Been a while.
Hi, yeah, my
Jackie,
gosh.
Do you have more? Here.
It's,
We can share it, right?
it's still a movie
That's okay,
theater.
we can share it.
You know how many people ask, what's happening there? It's still a movie theater. I don't know.
Gonna clarify now.
We're going to clarify it.
Yeah, I think so. I'll try.
You want us to go, or you want Claire to speak first?
I'll let Claire.
She's gonna put something up on the screen.
The screens do us no good. You have to have bionic eagle eyes to see it. But we know this backwards and forwards.
It's great.
But you did get the cross-access, which is
We
wonderful.
did.
That's
Which is
great.
really why we're here, I think. to help
It's
you.
excellent, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is just a discussion, so.
We got them to do, sign an owner's endorsement also, which means we'll actually be able to construct the
The,
cross-access.
oh, wonderful, wonderful. That's going to make such a difference, you know?
Walter negotiated that.
Yeah, that wasn't.
Claire, why don't you give a little preface about what we're doing?
Sure. So, this is back in, I believe, 2019. That's the last plans I have on the project. And you gave a lot of feedback through the pre-submission process and through the initial discussion on SECRA for the project. And really, you wanted to implement the cross-access. So this property, the one with CBS, has always had future cross-access with the property to the east, which is known as the Village Green. They have never come through for a site plan, so they were never to be connected to the site, though it is the intention and mentioned in the master plans through the years for Hampton Bays. So during that review, we encouraged the applicant to reach out to the property to the east and secure this cross-access and implement a plan that the planning staff, Kyle specifically, came up with, which was to redo the parking in the front, which is just a sea of asphalt at this point, and provide some open space and some coordination with the property to the east, the Village Green property. And this was the proposal, though not probably what's going to be approved. It's probably be tweaked a little bit. But they did secure the easement finally. So it took them a couple of years. And they have secured the easement with Perry Lee, which is the owner from next door. And we have a copy of that easement. So that's great. That's a big tool to be used. So to refresh this site plan, we would need plans that reflect this, because obviously this mitigation is built into the site plan now, and we would need that to do our further review with regard to SECRA. So I asked them to amend their application, their site plan, and provide that information so that we can consider it with part of the SECRA review for the project.
Liz, do you have a revised site plan?
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
I am confused by that.
oh,
Some of
good.
this was submitted by
Yeah.
VSB, but
Where is it?
I don't know.
All
We had
I
to
have
draft the whole plan
recently
for
is
the
the
neighbors.
easement.
have
I don't have anything. Sorry.
Oh, well, that's
It's
just
the
an
old
error.
one.
Yeah. We have a I will confirm with VHB, but we have a plan that's dated April 30th of 2020
It's been
that we
proposed.
thought was submitted.
Right.
It shows the cross-access, it shows the parking, the new entrance off of Montauk Highway with the parking that's, actually, these parking spaces are on the neighbor's property. The cross-access is here. It shows the green space along Montauk Highway, what we're calling the Greenway Park, which was the new entrance to downtown Hampton Bays. A lot of this was based on conversations we've had with the board in the past, conversations, dialogue with, and recommendations by the planning department. So we will submit a full set of these to you again, Claire.
Yep,
It was done during COVID, so I'm not sure what happened.
they're
there.
not on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I promise you, they're not.
Yeah, okay. So,
So you hadn't gotten the easement until recently, and then I received the easement, but that's the only document. I
So we
received.
started negotiating the cross-access easement in 2020, and we finally, actually, it's 2019,
Yeah.
December of 20, right after the December 4th, we had a meeting with you, December 14th, 2019.
Well, that was it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was our last.
Last
That was our
one.
last meeting. We started negotiating the cross-access because we agreed that day, which I think we were downstairs, as I recall, to provide the cross-access with the new property to the east. We started negotiating that in December of 2019. We finally reached an agreement in January of
22.
22.
So this is, so introduce yourself. This is Chris
Oh.
Kent from Farrell Fritz,
Yeah,
and
I'm
I'm
sorry.
Liz Vale, I'm with Greenberg Traurig, and this is Walter Morris, the
Okay,
owner
so
of
we'll
the
start over
property.
from the beginning.
Say
This-
again, yes, sorry, I should have asked you.
Yeah, that's
Oh, no, yeah.
okay.
Christopher Kent from Farrell Fritz. I represent CVS. This
Okay.
is Walter Morris. He's
Owner.
president of WDP
Enterprise.
We've seen him
Enterprises
before.
Incorporated. Yeah,
I'm
I've been
Liz
here
Vale, I know most of you, it's nice to see you
Right.
again.
How are
I'm
you
with
with-
Greenberg Traurig, and I represent WDP Enterprises Incorporated.
Great,
That's
okay.
why I'm here.
Good.
So, and you're familiar with the property, it's a 2.7 acre parcel on corner of Montauk Highway and Springville Road in Hampton Bays. It's kind of the gateway entrance to Hampton Bays. It has an existing building of 27,758 square feet, mixed use, retail. We're seeking a special exception to convert the existing movie theater, which at one time was a grocery store. It was a grocery store for a very long time, became a movie theater. And now we're putting it back into retail, drugstore use. It's a little less than 15,000 square feet. So it requires a special exception because it's greater than 5,000 square feet. So in this zoning,
AB zoning.
this type of use between 5,000 and 15,000 square feet requires a special exception. We had discussed that quite a bit at the beginning of our presentations, and we got more to site plan issues, which were the cross-access and the greenway space, and
Right.
and we've made all of those changes to the plans. We will submit a full set of plans. We may need to update SECRA or EAF a little bit to show certain efforts made to.
I would say so, yes.
So we've made efforts to mitigate some of the comments received and some of the identified potentially significant impacts. We're mitigating some of them by creating a green space, creating a new access. By doing the cross-access easement, we're creating access to Good Ground Road to the south. So it'll create very good traffic circulation and traffic flow patterns. You'll be able to access the site from the south, the north, and the west.
Excuse me, didn't we just, we're told that the entrance, the rear entrance is not usable?
The entrance to the, I'm gonna use it on my cursor.
Yeah.
Can you see it up there?
Can you make that larger?
No,
Claire?
further down.
Yes, I can.
Good.
Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So, Nelson Pope and Voorhees is doing the traffic associated with the current plan that's being considered for Hampton Bays.
Right.
And their relook at this intersection is to propose to close this.
To close that.
Yes. I don't have anything formal to give anyone
But
at
they
this
should-
point.
they
but
should be aware
have
of
that
that.
as
And
immediate.
that may be based on the fact that they haven't seen this amended plan, based, like the studies are crossing. In other words, perhaps she hasn't considered the fact that we're going to do cross-access with the Hamlet Green next door in making that recommendation. So well, I think it's, the Nelson Pope Voorhees is also doing this this planning study, right, this traffic
Right.
study? But they're doing a separate traffic study for Hampton Bays, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, so
that traffic study might not have this information. So that's what I'm saying we might
Right,
have to
well, we
add.
don't have the information.
Yeah.
So this plan that's up there is not the plan.
It's just a concept.
This is-
That's the plan that they have.
This is the plan that was provided by the town planning department to us
Right.
in an effort to
But
encourage us.
does yours comply
Yes.
with that? I mean, it's
Yep.
It
almost
does,
the same?
it does.
Okay.
The eastern axis is a little different. We do not have,
You have parking on both sides?
we
You
don't have diagonal parking on both sides, no. We only have it on the one side, on the eastern side of the entranceway.
Okay.
Is that, I was gonna ask, the Montauk Highway entrance, is that an entrance only? Or is that an entrance and an exit?
The way it's designed there, yes.
Exit right.
Entrance.
Yeah, it's an
Entrance and exit right. Exit east.
Okay, so it is two-way, right, because I was gonna say, your diagonal parking doesn't work if that's two-way.
Did they
Yeah, but
change
we
it?
shouldn't even be looking at that because.
Change it to one only,
That was a concept plan and this is.
I might be able to let them know
Yeah.
how that got
Yeah,
there.
maybe, let Walter.
Because I've been in this from the
From
beginning.
the very
Okay.
beginning, from
Why don't you
before
give
the
us a little
beginning.
history?
Go ahead, Walter.
Right.
Because we have
so-
some new members here and you haven't been party to some of the discussion.
Yeah, if you don't mind, only because I know it's not the same board.
Right.
And I wanted you to see how we got here.
Yep. Okay.
So, for me, this started back in 2018, because despite my best efforts over many, many years, the existing movie theater tenant is not willing to commit to an extension of their lease at the expiration of their lease, even at an offered reduction in rent. Regal Cinemas advised me that they needed a multi-million-dollar interior renovation to make the movie theater viable long-term, and the sales were not strong enough for them to warrant the investment. They had been my tenant for 20 years. They're great tenants, and they basically sent me an email suggesting that it was a good time to look for a replacement tenant. So that made me a little nervous.
Right.
It's a big space. I came to the planning department. I had worked with Claire before, and I had somebody in mind that's a tenant at other properties that I own that I knew might be interested, which is CVS. So my question was, is CVS a permitted use in the Hampton Business District? And I was told it is. So we signed a lease with CVS. We spoke to Regal, and Regal said that they would be willing to remain as a month-to-month tenant at a very substantially reduced rent until I secured a new tenant and got approvals. We didn't know that that would take 4 years. It's been
Well, you had COVID in between.
Yeah.
understood. Understood. No, there's no fault. I just didn't realize. As we all know, with the movie theaters, it's challenging business. Most people have very large theaters in their homes now. 75-inch TV, I think, cost about $600. They stream Netflix, Amazon, Disney. That's the challenges they're having. So for me, in order to make sure I didn't have a shopping center with a 15,000 square foot vacancy, and if you've been in the movie theater, it's not an easy place to relet. You have different levels. It's a very expensive renovation. I made the deal with CVS. And after several work sessions here at the planning board, Kyle Collins, who was the director of the planning department at the time, proposed a revised site plan for the CVS application, which he entitled Gateway Park. The idea being that this property was the gateway to Hampton Bays and the Hamptons. This new plan would allow for the CVS, but would also require, among many other things, that a very large part of the front parking lot be replaced by greenscape. Obviously, this is a very nice feature, but it's also extremely expensive to build. It limits the amount of parking in the front parking lot for the other members of my other tenants in my shopping center. But ultimately, CVS and I agreed to the planning department's proposal, and we submitted a revised site plan known as Gateway Park. During subsequent work sessions, it was now brought up by the planning board members that due to the increased landscaping and greenscape requested by the planning department, there might potentially be a shortage of parking and convenient access to accommodate the shopping center at certain peak times. It was suggested then that I might approach the adjoining property owner to the east and see if we could combine our parking areas and if access between the shopping centers and access to Good Ground Road could be provided. After about 2 years of discussions and difficult negotiations, I was able to secure a reciprocal easement agreement which achieved all of these goals. And I assure you that was not easy to get. This reciprocal easement agreement comes at very considerable costs to both myself and to CVS. The construction costs alone to restructure the parking areas, access roads, drainage, and landscaping between the properties is well in excess of $1 million. That entire cost will be borne both by myself and CVS. So, we're now at the point where hopefully we can move forward and allow CVS, which is a permitted use in the Village Business District, to build their new pharmacy, and at the same time completely revitalize the property, which the Planning Department and Planning Board has referred to as the gateway to the Hamptons. A very large portion of the asphalt parking lot at the corner of Main Street and Springville Road will be replaced by extensive landscaping and greenscape. There will be a reduction in traffic at this corner as a result of the new access to Good Ground Road. There will be additional parking provided and improved access between the properties as a result of the new reciprocal easement agreement. And finally, the building itself, the parking lots, site lighting, landscaping, and fencing will be improved drastically due to the investment to be made in this property. So
Very nice history.
I
Appreciate it.
I
Thank
hope
you.
that we're getting.
That brings everybody up.
For the
The other-
fill-in.
The one thing I wanted to just add is
Thank
that
you.
we do have the owner's endorsement from the neighboring property too, so this is actually going to be constructed, which is, it's not just a future cross-access, it's an actual construction. It's going to be great.
That's the little apartment complex here.
It's the Hamlet Green
The Hamlet Green.
at
that's
105
right,
West
the
Montauk.
businesses there.
It's
Yep.
a mix of
So-
retail and
So
office.
how much parking do you gain in the shared parking?
You want me to answer that? I think I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tell you approximately, VHB can tell you exactly, but
Yeah,
with
it's on our
the
plan.
landscaped areas, we were no longer fully conforming. With this reciprocal easement agreement, both buildings become completely conforming to the current zoning, based on the current tenant mix.
I have one question. You mentioned something about an access being closed, and I missed where that was.
Here, this one.
The one on to
The one
Springville.
closest to the intersection
One
is what they're
One on
proposing.
Springville.
Oh, okay.
This one. So you're then conforming with parking, but you don't gain any additional parking?
I believe, and please
Mm-hmm.
excuse me if I'm incorrect, but there might be some, what do you call it, when there's landscaping over the parking?
Oh, landscape bank.
banking.
Land
Some
banking.
land banking.
I have
for
to look at
parking
the plan.
spaces.
Yeah, you actually purchased
see.
8 spaces.
That was my predecessor.
Predecessor.
Okay.
He purchased spaces.
Thank you.
Texas Beverly Company. That's-
Yeah, let's see, so,
Yeah, we did a parking analysis, and we're actually.
parking requirements.
We actually do have enough parking on our site for our uses, but it would
Just
always.
on yours, so on the shared parking.
There's
Is that
proposed
number
246 parking spaces are proposed.
Combined?
Yeah.
They shared.
Yeah.
246?
Yeah. The required for this site is, I think, 145.
So
Yep,
CVS is
145.
145,
Mhm.
and the other one is 100 then, I guess, right?
Mhm.
We had enough
Project-
just on our own site.
We did.
It was because of the request for the greenscape in the front where we would be losing parking,
So I
I think
have,
we even have enough with the green space.
maybe.
so I have a question about that too, because I look at the parking in the front, and though there is perimeter green space, which is wonderful, there are no green plantings in the lot itself,
Right.
which would be a really positive addition if we could do so.
We did. There were plans that showed it.
Okay, so you have it.
Previous, but they didn't work
Yeah.
with access and with the cross easement and getting the parking to the
Right,
right.
so I'm only talking about, what is in our code, Claire? Every 10 spaces, there is a green,
There is
Mhm.
some land- these are
how is that referred to?
landscaping, so this is-
It's 330,
this is landscape.
Okay.
Landscape.
99J. It's 25 square feet for every
space when you're over 50 spaces.
So it's 25, it's not a lot, but it's a green with a tree which provides shade, you know? I look at some of this, and I've seen some huge parking lots like this before, and they are just ovens. They just bake, your cars just bake. So I'm just asking is if you could consider some of this
Right, where
greenery.
the numbers are, you can like take a half a space here, half a space here, those kinds of things.
There's challenges that I have in doing it with other tenants. For example, Leslie's Pools, which I was in front of you maybe 4 or 5 years ago. They have a certain area where I can't do anything in front of their store as per their lease.
Well, I'm talking in the middle. I'm not talking about in front of the store. I'm talking in the middle, the general lot. So if you'd consider that. And the other issue was the rear. You know, we had a lot of conversations about gussying up the rear of that building because there's an exit now that comes there. There are parking spaces. And so I'm just wondering if you have rethought that?
I'm not
to-
sure what you mean by an exit.
There's an exit in the rear.
The planning board wanted a rear exit, so that the parking spaces in the back of the building became very accessible and usable.
Right.
We discussed that. The
I don't
CVS cannot, and I think we've
Yeah,
gone
I-
over
we
this.
did vet that entirely. I recall that that was a hard no.
That was a hard no
from the
because
applicant.
the pharmacy is in the rear of CVS, and they don't like an entrance or exit near the pharmacy.
That was at one of
for
the last
security
meetings,
purposes.
yeah.
So we did go through that
It
extensively.
was a hard no, right? I never,
Yes.
never.
I think it was discussed
think
at
a no was so
three of the
hard.
meetings, perhaps.
Yeah.
One thing,
I said it was a hard-
if I can just convey,
I mean, we just had that with Marshalls, you know.
I
mean,
I don't think that there's any more that I can procure from CVS. I think I have pushed and persuaded as far as I can get
What about some cosmetic work on the rear?
financially to get this done.
Because it's cinder block.
Well, we did talk about doing some cosmetic aesthetic facade look, painting, some improvements to the
Some lattice
doors.
on it, or.
We had talked
there's all
about several
kinds of-
things, and I think the architect was coming up with a plan that we
Yes.
actually
Okay.
discussed this morning.
That's true.
Good.
The only thing I can convey is, because it's a former movie theater, and you have different levels, the cost to remodel and renovate that building is mind-boggling. And we added on top of that over $1 million in just basically allowing access between the buildings. I sort of know when I can't go back for more. So,
The lattice is not expensive, so there you are. You could make some cosmetic improvements.
Get the Hampton Bays beautification.
What happens to
group
the theater
plant some
section?
flowers.
Do you fill that in with concrete?
they're gonna fill it in.
Yeah, they have to.
It's a
make the
tremendous
floor.
job.
Are you gonna
But-
gut the whole interior? Is that what you have to do?
Yes, pretty much, yes.
Gut it and rebuild?
Plus, it's a sloped floor, so we have to level the floor.
So do you take out the slope, or do you add to it?
You add to it.
You'll
So,
level it
so,
out.
Fill it
so
with concrete.
only
Every
short
day-
people can go into a drugstore.
Yeah, it's an incredibly expensive renovation, and not
Well-
because it's CVS, for anybody.
Yeah, I,
No, the
Well, when you go
theater
from a
building,
theater
the
to a
ceiling
use
inside
of
the
a
theater is
retail,
very
of
high.
course.
yeah, I'm
It's
being
understood.
facetious.
But when you have options, it becomes a business decision, okay, how much more do we keep spending? We're gonna beautify the property, we're gonna put in these greenscapes, landscaping, new lighting, tremendous amounts of drainage because of the cross easement, new parking on the neighbor's property. How far do we go before we say, let's find another site?
Well, that's up to you, it's not up to us.
Well, it's up to
yours.
It's up to
CVS.
CVS,
No, but it's up to
actually.
CVS.
Yeah, that's up to CVS.
So-
And then, I look at, well, what are my alternatives? It's very, very hard. There's not a lot of retailers who would take a 15,000 square foot space and make this kind of investment. I've been doing this since I'm 22
Right,
years
well,
old.
I don't want to have a conversation with you about an ulterior thing. We're not going there. You're CVS, we're examining the site plan, we're
Yeah.
looking at it, we're trying to work with you. I'm not,
As far
You
as,
know, your financial situation is yours.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
We understand, thank
But I
you.
think there's a
but
value.
as far as cosmetic things, we'll certainly bring that back to the client, and we'll
Yes.
make sure we share with you
Right.
what they're planning on doing, and maybe get some renderings.
Right.
Absolutely.
and Claire will get any information to you that's necessary about the closure of that exit on
Sure.
Springville.
And
So
we'll update Nelson Pope
This,
before he's too.
Maybe you could get me that plan.
Yeah.
Electronically. I can
Mhm.
get an estimate from Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and we can
Mhm.
get that party started about looking.
Because
at
the
it.
recommendation VHB is doing is for the Hamlet study, right?
NPV, we're getting mixed up.
And-
NPV is doing it for the Hamlet study, yes.
Okay.
That's about Voorhees.
I'd love to see that as it comes
Yeah.
along.
Yeah.
progresses.
Should take a look.
Sure.
Because one of the things I did want to point out, again, being new to this, and maybe it was brought up before, the importance of that cross-access and the access to Good Ground Road
Good Ground Road, yeah.
is tremendous.
It is tremendous.
You
It
know,
is.
this intersection
Right
up
after
here,
that.
Springville and Montauk, is one of the highest accident locations in the town.
Right.
Between here and and where you hit Flanders Road.
Right.
So this gives motorists, ingress, egress, and, can get to different parts of Hampton Bays without having to get onto Montauk Highway or onto Springville, which is great. So
I
I'm
mean,
glad that was part of the.
Springville backs up forever. when-
Yeah.
Could be.
But possibly this becomes maybe one way in,
Right.
Off of Montauk Highway.
off of
That's
here.
Off of Good Ground or off of?
No,
of
off
Ground.
Montauk, and out
Right.
into Springville, right?
That's what I wondered about,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
that was both directions or whether it was just in. but-
Well, your traffic engineer will look at it, right?
Yeah, we-
100%.
Yeah.
When, if your traffic engineer has any opinions on that
Okay.
initially,
Yeah.
do you have an updated
Sure.
traffic analysis?
Mm-hmm.
That
We
would be
did a
great.
traffic study, Nelson Pope and Voorhees reviewed our traffic study.
Right, I'm, obviously, this is a great change to the benefit, so do you have an updated one from VHB, is the
Yes.
question?
You do? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, we
we'll
will,
submit
yeah.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
You will,
Great.
okay.
I think we discussed having an updated based on the new traffic flow.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
with the cross-access.
Yeah, this was
Yes.
a great, as Walter says,
Yeah.
great time expended and great money expended to create this cross-access
But
opportunity.
it's good planning. It's
Yeah,
Yeah, it is good
definitely.
planning.
We embraced it right from the start.
But I think it's much better than.
Yeah, it's a value to your business as well, because people aren't so landlocked that they can't get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've owned it a long time, and we'd like to own it for a long time coming and have it be beautiful and perfect.
So we were deemed incomplete for secret purposes, so we're going to update everything and get it to you, and hopefully be before you with all that information.
Are they gonna do anything to improve their site? You don't know?
No, I don't know.
Who, you mean the neighbor?
The neighbor,
Yeah.
yeah.
The owner, who I spoke to many times, and Walter spoke to him many times, I don't know if he has immediate plans, but I do think he has some long-range plans, but I don't represent him, so I'm not gonna present
Right.
those to you. But he does have some plans for that site.
You know,
Just
when
curious.
your neighbor upgrades, you realize you're getting shabby.
I also think he's happy with having the access to this parking, because his tenants in the front have no parking. The parking that they have is in the rear.
Well, it's beneficial to him, because it gives access to his parking in the rear, which is substantial. He's got quite a bit of
It
space
was hard
back
to
there.
get him to understand that, though.
Yeah, well,
The
it's
benefit to
hard
him.
for people to change, believe me. We know that.
But he did.
He came around.
He
Good.
did. He's a nice.
Okay, anything more you want to tell us? This was just a discussion, and it was helpful, and
Good. I
we'll
just
go to
wanted
the
to
next step.
reintroduce
We
it
would
to
like to
you
move
and-
forward with the
Thank
next
you.
step as quickly as possible,
Yep.
because this has been a very long time. CVS has been patient, Walter's been patient.
Right,
we would
and of
like to
course you
make it
had, you
happen.
were unfortunate to have COVID right in the middle of it, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all lived through that.
We've all been suspended.
Yes. Okay, thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
I'm
Thank you, Claire.
You're welcome.
Good to see all of you again.
Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too,
Yeah,
Liz.
take care, everybody.
I'll come
Thank you.
over and visit
Good to see
you.
everybody. Good to see you,
Yes.
Christine.
Offices
Thank
are
you.
nice?
Yeah, they're nice.
Okay, no problem.
Come see, come
Yeah,
visit.
I will.
Okay.
I got my hair cut Monday. My barber was asking her for an update on this project.
Now
Like this is all back
Now you
to
can
us.
report.
Great plan, look at that beautiful.
Claire,
It'll be recycled.
number 15, GTB Real Estate Group, an extension on that?
Yes, this is an extension for 90 days until September 9th, 2022, with, subject to the requisite fee being submitted.
Okay, number 15. So motion to extend to September 9th, 2022 by George, second by Gloria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
And my last one is the Atlantic Golf Club. It's not going to be on for signature. What I realized as I was looking at this is that it was subject to review of the meadow easement. Do you remember Atlantic Golf Club? It's the one where the housing is there and it was important to keep that vista. So they've created a meadow easement very similar to what they existing have at their entrance. So we just wanted to run that by Marty. They made a couple of little changes. Marty's approved it, and you're going to approve that meadow easement too. So that's essentially it. Their plans are here, but the essential item of it is that the meadow will be retained. And so those are the plans.
Near Shorts Pond.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly. So I just want to, I'll show you too quickly if you're amenable. This is, with the yellow, is the meadow.
You could come and sit if you need to.
Yeah.
You get
If you can see the
Big chair.
yellow line,
Yeah.
that is the easement that's being created with the
Oh, oh,
subdivision.
oh, okay.
So that easement will be filed. And then the meadow, which is existing here, is going to be maintained just as the other one's being maintained. So that's been approved by Marty, and you would approve this today, and then we would sign it at the next meeting.
Okay, so has council seen the easement?
The meadow one, the new one?
Yeah.
I
Just
have
need to
everything
take a look at
already.
it.
I've reviewed everything I've had.
Yes, and I've got that.
Okay.
Yes.
So you'll review it,
I
Kristen?
did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
GTB.
Okay.
And the trail is part of the easement or not?
The trail is here, that's a separate easement, and.
Separate easement,
Yes.
so that's one easement, two
And what it
easements?
facilitates is that it now connects to the existing trail to the north and goes around the
Right.
entire property, which is excellent.
Right.
the gully trail.
The Gully Trail. It's,
Okay.
it's
So
good
Marty's
for-
looked at it, signed off on it?
He has.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
And so we approved this today and the sign for the next meeting. And
Okay, so we need an approval for the meadow easement.
Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, seconded
Second.
by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. So it's not acknowledged signature. It's
Right.
I'll change it to approve the meadow easements.
approve the meadow easement.
Okay? Great.
You're done, Claire.
I am, thank you.
It's all Anthony. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.
74 Priscilla Avenue. Anybody want a copy of the report?
Please.
Okay. I promise you, we will be smoother next time.
You gonna have it on screen?
I am gonna.
I'll look at it on screen.
Okay. I have them here if anybody wants them. So the property, this is a 2-lot subdivision. The property's in the middle here in yellow. It's a vacant piece of property. It's on Priscilla Avenue. I highlighted in the green the other lots, similar lot sizes is what's being proposed here. The application is to split this lot back down the middle. It used to be 2 lots. It was part of a subdivision map. Not an old file map, but a map from the 30s or 40s, and the properties subsequently merged. It's R15 zone. So the property is 20,000 square feet, so they're looking to create two 10,000 square foot lots. So this would require relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then
Is the neighborhood?
similarly sized? Yeah,
Yeah.
let me show you back on the aerial.
Yeah.
Everything in blue, I think, right?
Yeah, the aerial shows a lot of other smaller.
Yeah, I tried to highlight them in green.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
So I would say, good percentage of them.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, it's just, personally, it's like you're basically creating half the size of what the lot's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
Zoning.
I have an issue with that, but obviously other planning boards have
Right.
given all their neighbors permission, so.
From an environmental
Yes,
standpoint?
yeah.
So I'll just go through the draft
I'm
report
not
for
wearing
you.
green today.
So obviously, it's Priscilla Avenue, R15 zone. It's also the New York State Archaeological Sensitive Area. Obviously, it's a single-family residential development. This is a standard plan with 2 lots, as I said, at 10,000 square feet each. Cluster plan is not warranted in this case for obvious reasons. This would be a minor subdivision review. Conformance with zoning, as I said, we have a lot width and lot area issue. And then, obviously, if you're going to redevelop the properties, they probably have to get some setback relief from the structures as well. So that's noted in there. And of course, they should always confirm with the building department any relief that they need. I always point this out, with respect to creating undersized lots, the zoning board, and this is a zoning board requirement, have to look at whether or not they've exhausted all opportunities for development, right? So that issue will be brought up, and there are exemptions from that, which I've outlined, and it'll be up to the ZBA, I guess my direction now that I sit with them, to consider that. But I do always point it out to the zoning board so they are aware. As I'm trying to balance, whether or not to grant the relief in this case. This would be a type 2 action under SECRA. Under our code, it's a type 2 action, but it is in the archaeological sensitive area, so a report will be necessary. The park requirement here would be satisfied with the payment of a fee, as opposed to providing an on-site park.
Was that 2,500?
I don't know, actually. I have to go back and look.
It varies from.
It depends. I don't remember if, was there a house on this property previously? No. Then it's likely that they would not be the $2,500 fee. I think the $2,500 flat fee applies if you're doing a 2-lot subdivision, but only creating 1 additional lot because there had been a house on the property before. I think in this case, it's going to be based on the assessed value, so I think it's going to be more than $2,500.
Assessed value.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the code's very clear about that to make sure that there had been a CO. Because when you're only creating 1 additional residence, then they give you the benefit of the flat $2,500 fee.
Right.
So that's why I just put a fee in here, but I don't know the amount yet, and we'll see at the final. No public comments during the hearing, and this is not subject to the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. Town engineer made some comments. He noticed that at the back of the property, it looks like they might have been using a common driveway that comes in the back of the property. So he's obviously recommending. There's a common driveway behind the property that provides access to the lots back here. Looks like it's encroached its way into the property here somehow, so that's going to be cut off, so we make sure that we're not providing access over someone else's driveway. They're going to come off Priscilla Avenue. So the engineer pointed that out in his review. Whoops. Just a couple of other minor comments, and he recommends engineering approval. And of course, we always do the 3-inch rainfall in the drainage. Office of Fire Prevention said that everything is okay. Flanders Fire District. This here where it says Flanders Fire District, this has to be stricken from the report because I don't believe they actually provided any comments. I think this is from a different application.
So no comments from.
So no comments from the fire district or the highway department. To Glorian's point, the Conservation Board made their comments. The Conservation Board is very consistent when it comes to these applications that we get in the Flanders area.
From an environmental standpoint.
From an environmental standpoint, they do acknowledge that there are no wetlands within the jurisdiction, so there's no wetlands permits. This is just one of those balancing acts where you try to figure out where can we accommodate, some additional density where we need housing and everything else. All at the same time trying to not overdevelop, so it's just, and in this particular case, and you raise a point, Glorian, I've read legal cases before when granting variances, whether the variances are substantial. And when you look at it on its face, they seem very substantial when you do a raw quantitative analysis. But in New York State, I have read the cases where that analysis does need to take into account the average size of the properties within the neighborhood. So it's an interesting, balancing act.
That's obviously, a lot of the neighbors have been able to build on smaller lots.
Smaller lots.
So there's a precedent being set, so.
Correct.
it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
Once there are, half a dozen,
If this was the first application coming in for the neighborhood,
that would be.
I know,
different.
look at
Yes.
it a lot differently, yeah.
So obviously the Environment Division put out all their concerns about the river contamination, groundwater, septic, and it's all noted in the report, as they normally.
But is there a proximity to a water body here?
Well, you can see from the aerial. Maybe you can't see from the aerial. There's a whole bunch of county land and preserved land, and then the river's to the north here. So it's
How far?
500 feet,
Oh, it's close.
fairly close, yeah. But there's no wetlands within jurisdiction, is my point.
But that's their comment on the Peconic River.
Yep, and they're consistent with
three.
it. It's,
Anthony, on the 100 by 100 lot, what's the max buildable footprint?
It's hard to say because you're allowed a 20% maximum on the building coverage, which includes
Fitting within the
all roof
pyramid,
structures.
right?
Yeah,
So we're looking at relatively small.
If you want to avoid a
three-
pyramid, you're looking at a one-story residence.
1-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of thing.
Modest house.
Yeah, sure. The Trails Advisory said there was no trail implications, and we didn't get any comments from the CAC or the Health Department. So just some recommendations here. If they do proceed with the ZBA, this would be the ZBA comments. And we note about point 2 about the development rights, which I'm going to come back to in another recommendation. 3, the archaeological study, which is required. 4, the new IA systems for both lots. Number 5, just to point that out, it's not really our issue, but it is in groundwater management zone 4 for the health department. So they require a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. So my guess is, and I can't say this definitively, my guess is this will have to go to the board of review from the health department, I don't know, which they may require sanitary flow credits in order to get approval from their agency. So I like to put it in there because it covers now the development rights from both perspectives. If the health department does require it, you have a little bit less of a concern with the zoning board granting any relief because the health department would have effectively
Yeah.
required the development rights. So I like to point it out for that reason.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the neighborhood has smaller lots, so
Yeah.
they're sort of in the same position we are.
Yeah, yeah.
That if you've granted it to someone else, you set precedent.
So
But it was denied in 1968. That's very interesting.
Well, I did look, I did look at that. I don't believe it was a 2-lot subdivision that was denied. There was a variance that was applied for, but I don't believe it was for a 2-lot subdivision, just to clarify that.
And all
Again,
those other lots were subdivided since then.
Yeah.
They're still in the precedent issue that we are.
6 about the earth driveway in the back shall be removed and access should not be taken from that flag strip. I highlighted common driveway here. This is another one of those questions where a lot of times, we talk about doing a common driveway. I love common driveways where we're trying to, accomplish something. This is just one of those cases on Priscilla Avenue. Do we want to burden a property with a common driveway between 2 property owners on a road that doesn't have a significant amount of traffic? That's up to the
But
board.
we often look at the first 20 feet,
Yeah. I just, I always put it for a discussion, so, and I'm sure the applicant wants to talk about that. Compliance with the town engineer requirements, town office of public safety, and that the final application will require health department approval. So that's all I have. I know that the applicant wanted to chit chat about the common driveway a little bit. I think that was the one issue they wanted to talk about.
Please. And give us your name for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Rachel Davy of Davy Law PC, attorney for the applicant.
Ray Dickoff, I work for the applicant.
Sorry, I missed your name.
Fisher Organization, Ray Dickoff.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so if it were up to the applicant, we obviously would prefer to keep the two lots with individual driveways, not having common driveway and burden each of the lots with sharing that. As Anthony mentioned, traffic really isn't too much of an issue here. You have a fairly relatively small neighborhood. Having individual driveways is consistent with the rest of the homes in the neighborhood. They don't have common driveways. They each have their own driveway. And so we'd just like to stay with the standard conformance of the neighborhood to that regard.
Any other issues?
I don't think we have any other
You
issues.
understand everything that needs to go with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, raised on a few of these now in the neighborhood.
Yeah, we've done several, on Priscilla. We had 2 previous ones on Priscilla Avenue. And we're doing a single lot on Priscilla. So, and as far as that driveway in the back of the building, that property was owned by the neighbor to the right
To
of
the
the
east.
property. So this is 74 Priscilla, 76 owned 74. So that's.
So they used it to turn
They
around
used
or
to
something?
park trucks back there, they park a trailer back there, they just go in and out back there, so.
Right.
Now this property will have a fence in the rear. The 2 properties will be fenced off, they'll be fenced down the center. That's why we're talking with the common driveway, typically I would like to run bring the driveway out, leaving a 2-foot space between the 2, and possibly putting like a split rail fence down. So it's definitely 2 different houses,
Yeah.
and one guy doesn't park too close to the other guy's side, and, he keeps it separate. And it matches everybody else on the road, most of the other houses on the road are these small lots.
And Priscilla is not overburdened.
No, Brazil's not overburdened, no, it's a nice little neighborhood.
Good.
And this house is it's less than 1,300 square feet. I think you had asked, it's 1-story, it's 1296.
Is Priscilla a town road or a private road?
Town road.
Town
Town road.
I know there's some private roads in that area.
Yeah, they do. There's some up there, but this is town road.
Well, the town needs housing like this.
I don't use the term affordable housing because of the stand of what it is, but
It's
by
modest
design and location, it is affordable housing for Southampton.
Yeah,
Just by
because
design and
we
location.
live in
It's definitely
an
needed.
odd place.
It's
Right.
definitely needed.
Right.
You don't anticipate any problem with the guy that kind of parks his cars, trucks, and turns around back there or anything? I mean, heard of these issues?
No,
coming
that's,
up,
we bought the property from her, and honestly, her husband has passed in the last 2 years, and that's not, no, it's not a concern at all.
I was gonna say, sometimes there's misunderstandings over people using,
No.
I believe the neighbors of that area specifically are all pretty friendly,
Yeah.
from my understanding.
That's always nice. Any other questions? None from us, so this is pre-app report, we'll adopt it?
We'll adopt it.
Okay. Motion to adopt the pre-app
Motion.
report by Craig, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. Thanks very much.
Thank
Very
you.
much. Thank you.
Okay, Anthony, Hampton Bays Fire District.
Good comments. I did get a request for an extension of the action deadline until June 23rd, 2022.
What, now, if we're going to extend it again, why don't they just take a longer extension? I don't,
Yeah, it just seems to be having a problem, the attorneys agreeing on the nature of the language of the cross-access.
no, I understand that, but why don't they just take a longer extension instead of having it on the agenda all the time?
Make that suggestion next time.
Okay, so this is an extension to June 23. Motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by George. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
And then what we'll do is 4 and 5, which is.
Take 'em together?
We're going to do them together, and I'm going to do the site plan really first.
Okay,
'Cause that's really the gist of it.
okay.
And I have hard copies of both here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, these are
Good.
I read it online, but I'll take a hard copy. Thanks.
And then what we're
Do-
going to do.
all right, you can come up here and sit. Okay, Anthony.
Yeah.
They got copies of the report? So just to remind the board, up on the screen here, we have the properties in question. It's 2 lots on West Montauk Highway in Hampton Bays. The property here just to the east is the car wash. I believe it's a car wash in Hampton Bays. And then to the west, you have some residences immediately adjacent to the lot over here. And I believe North One is one of the restaurants in this little cluster of buildings down here, just to give you some reference point. To the south is basically a single-family residential development within the R20 zoning district, and that's all on the south side. All of this up here, including the subject properties in the highway business zoning district, HB. To the north.
What are the undeveloped lots to the south?
Here?
Yeah.
So these are R20 zone. We actually have a pending application, Eugene Sessa, for the one down here. But this is all residentially zoned property down here, R20.
Okay.
So what's the application and the one below for subdivision for?
Right here.
for housing?
For housing, yeah. Then that's a difficult application. To the north here, on the other side of the Long Island Railroad tracks, is preserved county land. It is Pine Barrens, and it's in the core preservation area.
Core?
Yeah.
Oh.
So the application before the planning board are 2 applications. We have a pre-application for a subdivision, a pre-submission conference for the subsequent development of the 2 lots as part of the subdivision. I'm sorry, that's my phone. I should not be doing that. Sorry. That should have been off. So I'll quickly show you here. Where's my subdivision map? Hold on. These are the 2, the subject property, and they're showing a 2-lot subdivision, 1 larger lot here, and then this second, sort of like a flag lot, although the strip here, I believe, is approximately 60 feet wide. We'll create a second lot here. The larger lots would contain almost all of the improvements associated with a battery energy storage facility, and all the structural components that go with it. Which I'll go through. And then the second lot, which would be a point of interconnection substation, which would, that's the property by which the overhead utility lines would connect to the PSEG lines to the north. So we have sort of a symbiotic relationship here going on between the PSEG, which has the structures to the north, and this would obviously ultimately feed into the PSEG substation.
Anthony, on the aerial, you showed us two lots. So basically, we're just changing where the 2 lots are separated.
There are 2, basically, yeah, this project involves 2.
So that we're putting them
We're
together
putting
and
them
then
together,
take them apart in a different
Yeah,
way.
it's a 2-lot subdivision.
Yes.
Right,
but-
and
but-
then the site plan is on.
But it's two lots.
So, yeah, so reconfiguration of the lots and then a set, really.
Yes, yes.
And the subdivision is
So
because.
I'm looking at it as 2
Because of
steps.
LIPA, yeah.
Okay, and then just, this shows you here the development back here, where the second lot would be, is the point of interconnection substation. You can see the overhead utility lines and the other structural components. And then you can see the larger battery storage facility, which includes all of the battery storage components, all the structures that go with it. And then another little substation, which ultimately connects to the point of interconnection substation. And all this, is part of, the larger battery energy storage facility that they're proposing. Let me just, let's see. So approximately 8.25 acres for the 2 properties together. We had a pre-submission conference March 10th, and it was adjourned until April 28th. And we did get comments. The board had a lot of comments. We had some comments from the public as well. So the project description just talks about the components. Again, it's 50 battery storage system units with the point of interconnection substation, and then the transformers, voltage hardware, inverter, switchgear, all the rest of it that's shown on the site plan. No other overlay districts. And again, I described commercial properties on the north side, and then the R20 residential neighborhood on the south side of the highway. And then just to remind the board, 3 residential lots immediately adjacent to this project to the west. To the west, yes, to the west. So we did have public comments that are summarized here. Again, it was questions regarding research on best facilities in terms of health and safety, fires, any other human health issues, whether or not the lot was appropriate for this project at this scale, the closeness of the residential properties and businesses, that there have been too few case studies, concerns regarding noise and safety, the inability to meet the zoning and special exception requirements, again, other sites, overhead utility line concerns, height variances that are being requested, and then the involvement with the substation, raising questions about the scale and size of the project. So I think that really summarized just the general concerns. So I listened to, a lot of what the planning board had to say, a lot of the questions about this project. So the first comment, this is a special exception application in this particular zoning district, so it's subject to the special exception criteria, the general standards in 330, 122, and then specific standards in 162.21. In addition to the site plan standards and the site plan objectives, in general. So I say in here, while the planning board is generally supportive of green energy alternatives, the inability of the project to comply with certain special exception standards, site plan objectives, and elements of the comp plan raises questions about the appropriateness of this project at this location and is currently proposed. So let's start off with one issue as it relates to the special exception, the height of structures. The special exception standards say the 20 feet is the maximum height for any structural component of the best facility. So in this case, they're proposing with the point of interconnection substation and then with the project substation, lightning rods, masts, whatever the proper terminology is, at about 55 feet high, it sounds like, from the application description. Just so that the applicant should clarify, but from what I understand, in the first case, where the point of interconnection substation, these 55-foot high antennas are going to be sitting atop 35-foot high A-frames. Am I correct?
Would you like me to
Just to clarify that.
So there will be...
Can you just please identify yourself for the
sure.
record?
Good afternoon. My name is Phil Denara. I am a senior manager for Key Capture Energy, and I'm represented by...
I'm John Anzalone from Harris Beach, the attorney for Key Capture Energy.
So to clarify the height variances requested, within the point of interconnection substation, this is where we're pulling in the 3 phases of 69 kV power from LIPA's existing transmission easement into the substation and then back out. So there'll be 2 H-frames at a height of 35 feet to carry that line in the very back of the property in the northern section. On top of the 1, 2, 3, and 4 legs of that H-frame, the H-frame is up to 35 feet. There will then be a lightning rod that sits on top of that to 55 feet. And then in the project substation, which is attached to that, there will be 3 other lightning masts at a height of 55 feet.
And what will they be sitting on top of?
Those will be sitting on top of tapered concrete foundations.
So those will be at grade?
So they'll be at grade and a very skinny lightning mast going up.
Okay, so I just so it could be clarified then. So on the second point that he made, so those lightning masts will be at a height of 55 feet. I've just pointed this out because at the point of interconnection, those A-frames are 35 feet high.
Correct.
So those are already 15 feet higher than what the code allows. So I just want to point out that you're putting 15, so we're clear, 55 feet on top of 15 feet?
It's
That's
80
already,
feet.
No, 55 feet
35
total.
on top.
It's 55 feet total?
35 feet
20
height
feet
of the
higher on top
H-frame, and then 20 feet on top.
Okay, I just wanted to, because the description, I wasn't sure.
Okay.
So that's what I wanted to make sure.
Repeat that, please.
Sure, 35 feet high for the H-frame, and then a 20-foot lightning mast on top of the 4 legs of the H-frame for a total height of 55 feet.
Whereas the other lightning mast will be 55 feet high at the point of the
Correct.
grade up. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's, I just wanted to make sure. That was important clarification.
There will be 3 in the project substation, and then the 4 on top of the H-frame. So the four 20-foot lightning masts on top of the H-frames, and then 3 55-foot lightning masts within the project substation.
And is that on the property with the battery storage or on the substation?
So the 4 sitting on top of the H-frames are within the subdivided parcel that will be conveyed to PSE&G within
it's on PSE&G.
within the point of interconnection substation, and then the 3 which are on tapered concrete foundations will be within the project substation.
Okay.
So with that first point, so we say that in addition to the obvious visual concerns, there's also concerns about public safety in general. With a battery storage project of this size and scale, there are concerns about lightning-induced overvoltage, fires and explosions, and thermal runaway, for example. So that's that. The second, again, these are specific special exception standards, so I just want to make sure I'm
This is
distinguishing.
battery storage.
To the battery storage use. So the second one talks about the height of the fencing requirements. So they allow or require a maximum height of 6 feet fencing around the facility. This project is proposing a 12-foot high sound and barrier wall. That's what the site plan accounts for. I would concede the point that walls are incredibly effective in blocking out noise and sound, but it raises the question about the scale of the project and the inability to meet the noise standards without a 12-foot wall.
A concrete wall?
No, it's going to be determined, but some sort of steel structure likely.
So, so I think that's another standard that the project doesn't comply with. And then the third design standard, it's C here, talks about the overhead utility lines. Here, the special exception standards require all lines to be underground. So obviously the potential visual impacts associated with that. Then D just talks about the general site plan standards. And this talks about whether or not the site is appropriate really for the use. So, the question, that I think the board was grappling with is, unlike the few others that we have, which aren't seeking relief from special exception standards, here, this particular project is seeking relief from special exception standards, design standards, dimensional standards, I think on a pretty significant level, considering that it's new legislation. And I think that that's where we're grappling with is you have these laws that were put into place with very specific design standards, and 3 important ones here relating to height, size, underground, all that is.
Which I guess is why the code allows special exception standards in an area that might be less attractive. It's not in a commercial or industrial.
Yeah, for sure. So that was the point, the part D there. And the planning board is just not really supportive at this stage. You always got to look at legislation as we implement it over time. But it's difficult to just get new applications in with, that require so much relief, from the get-go. So I think that's got to be a consideration.
Especially since there's so much housing.
Yeah, sure, no question. E talks about the building coverage and footprint. It's an 8.25 acre lot. They're saying you're looking at building coverage at around 1 acre of land, which is true, when you're looking at the battery storage components. But it looks like roughly over 6 acres of land will actually be cleared to accommodate this project, leaving just over 2 acres in the form of perimeter buffers, which again then raises questions about the size and scale of the project and the inability to meet some of the special exception standards. So we have that. F, the Hamptons Corridor Strategic Plan, and I'm sorry, I don't have the map. I sent it to you guys, but I don't have it up here. But the Hampton-based corridor study specifically includes these properties in this area on the north side of the highway there, accounts for an alternative bike path along the railroad tracks in the back, and cross-access between all the lots on that side. For obvious reasons. We always, do the cross-accesses because we want to be able to get people, to and from the commercial sites without having to get onto the highway if at all possible. I think in this particular case, the use itself doesn't lend, is that happening? I hope it's not me. I thought I turned mine off. The use itself really doesn't lend itself to cross-access. Typically, it's between compatible land uses. But as proposed, there's just simply no room for it either. So I think that raises that question. And of course, the bike path in the back.
Well, it might be dangerous to have.
Well, that's the other side of it, of course.
And security.
Yep.
Which then, to point out then, which raises the concern about the Pine Barrens vegetation on the other side of the, is where droughts are happening more. The pine beetle seems to be destroying vegetation all over the place. The dry timber. We all remember in the 90s, the Pine Barrens.
Yeah.
Major,
Sure we do.
major.
So there was that. F, it talks about the Hampton-based corridor. Again, the subdivision component, again, just raises the question about the scale of the project. So now, unlike the other ones, this one has a point of interconnection substation with the connection of the overhead utility. This is a very a much larger scale project than the other ones. It's almost like a public utility grade style project, in which the subdivision results in some setbacks. They're looking for 0-foot setbacks from some of the structural components. We typically don't do subdivisions and then approve structures with setbacks that don't comply. We try not to create lots with nonconformities, especially when you have lots that conform to zoning in general. So that raises a couple of issues. Oh yeah, I raised the question about the point of interconnection substation. How is that use actually going to be classified? I don't know the answer to that, by the way. Only because the special exception standards talk about a BESS facility as a principal use versus an accessory use. I have no doubt that the BESS facility is a principal use here, but this particular point of interconnection substation separated off from the rest of the project, is that an accessory structure? I don't know the answer to that. So I think we would need to look at
And that's on a separate lot.
and that will be on a separate lot. So I think from a zoning standpoint, we need to be able to.
How do we zone other LIPA properties?
Well, they usually,
They're all different.
Yeah.
But we'll have an issue where we'll have to speak about it, because if you have an accessory use existing solely on a parcel without a principal use, that's an issue.
That's another issue.
Yeah, that's why I raised it. I wasn't, don't have an answer for the board, but, so we got to look at that. SECRA, this is an unlisted action. I think the planning board raised a number of issues about this project, particularly as it relates to the special exception standards. So I think, the applicant should be put on notice, absent some design changes to address these issues. You could be looking at a POS-DEC in a situation like this. So I think, we stated in the report so that nothing's hidden. Again, then, to go on, it says, notwithstanding the concerns that we just discussed regarding the size and scale of the project, the appropriateness of the site, there are all these special exception standards information that needs to be submitted here. And this is just verbatim from the special exception standards. I pointed out when they do this, we've got a second component, which is the subdivision. So how does a commissioning and decommissioning plan, for example, work in this case if there's going to be a parcel that's subdivided off and goes to the PSEG. So I think the special exception standards then will have to account, for that issue as well. And then I always raise the standard questions. Are there any plans for expansion? Is there any solar components, which we normally look at? But I think that this, we have some issues that need to be worked out with this project, I think, based on what I got from the planning board.
No, I think,
So a
Anthony,
report.
you've captured our concerns as well as the community's questions, so.
So who scouts out the sites? Is it Key Capture or is it?
Yes, so my key capture and my team scouted out the site. We have an internal geographic informations team and a market ops team, and essentially we're studying the electrical grid and determining injection and withdrawal capabilities, where does a project make sense. And once we've identified certain substations or transmission lines where it is feasible to interconnect, we're essentially running a query and identifying all of the available parcels that could potentially work. I'm based locally, grew up on Long Island, family lives around here. So I was able to actually physically prospect all these locations. And the simple fact is that there's very limited parcels within the town of Southampton that could potentially host this scale of a project.
Because of proximity to the existing.
Proximity to existing transmission lines and substations, and then just necessary space.
We don't have the technology where we can travel a farther distance?
Well, I was going to ask that question too. I mean, we've been trying to establish this whole, which came first, how we came to the site or not for some time. And one of the limitations seems to be proximity to interconnection site. Question is, what if you had to find another location and run the underground cable 1,000 feet instead of 50 feet. Is that a possibility?
It's extremely difficult, potentially possible. You could run cables.
Why would it be so difficult?
I mean, we've looked at sites within vicinity that would potentially require that, 2 substations, and there's still very limited parcels available.
I believe there's also a fairly expensive investment to, if you can't connect and you have to create a new connection. That's.
No, I understand that, but at the same time, so we're looking at a cost factor of connecting that versus all the other issues we're raising here, and these are valid issues we've been raising since we saw this application months ago.
We're at a crossroads, right? And it's one that's painfully obvious to you, and it's painfully obvious to boards like ours, where we're trying to do planning on the grand scale. We zoom out, right? So we look at residential, we look at highway business. And then we come back in to focus on your application. Your application, does it fit in with all of the rest of those things? So the site may be advantageous to you, and the technology is advantageous to all of us, but it may not be the right location because of the things that surround it. And these are things that I know I struggle with. I don't know about my fellow board members.
I mean, I think this is a truly commercial enterprise being suggested to go into residential, basically. Even though it's Montauk Highway, it's a budding residential. Something of this size probably fits better in an industrial, commercial part of the zoning.
So
That's just my personal.
Let me pick up on that. There are some industrial zones in the town. We have an industrial park right in Riverside. There are several parcels that are available, I think 3 or 4. We looked at some maps, Anthony, did we not?
Yeah.
There is a small battery storage solar system unit going in there. That's an active application. I don't know about a LIPA substation there, but LIPA is going to have to make some investment as well. It's a benefit to them to be able to handle peak draw in the community. So, I mean, did you look at?
We did look at the industrial park. There's unfortunately no high voltage transmission lines or substations in the vicinity to that project that would facilitate a feasible underground or overhead transmission line to a substation.
How
close is it?
Yeah, define in the vicinity from your.
Miles. I need to double check and look at a map, but when I checked, it was quite a distance to run a new transmission line too. It would take easements through multiple privately owned parcels, potentially the Pine Barrens, since it's in the vicinity of the Pine Barrens. There were a number of considerations for why that location just didn't make sense.
And how about some other industrial locations?
I mean, they're few and far between. This is why we selected this site. I know folks have elevated the airport. I think that's potentially on the same transmission circuit.
Which airport?
Gabreski.
Yeah. And?
I would have, it's county owned, I believe, so there's some complexity there around ownership and whether we can maintain or achieve site control. That would probably be the other most feasible path forward. But from our perspective, honestly, this is a relatively benign use once it's operating. It's completely unmanned. We've performed a sound study. We're complying with the sound code. From a visual perspective, we've shown you all leaf-on renderings. We have them here again, but there's very little impact. It's extremely safe. We're complying with all building and battery energy storage safety codes. So from our perspective, this is an extremely beneficial use to the community, and once operational is going to have minimal impact, including existing traffic constraints, no access to septic or sewage or other lines on the property. So from our perspective, it is quite an advantageous use for the site.
Maybe not for the community, and maybe not because it doesn't comply with the special exception standards. That may in fact, the code may be amended for this, because this is new for this community.
I mean,
So we have to be ahead of it and not be approving something that is not working on an overall master idea.
I mean, I'm concerned about the size of the variances that are required in order for this facility to function correctly. You need the sound wall. You need the lightning rods. The code suggests a very different size operation, is the way I'm looking at it. And so that's where we're struggling with saying, how could you allow this much change without some significant mitigation, which is traditionally what we do, is ask you to come up with a way to fix it. I don't think you can fix those things without being dangerous or noisy.
So just for reference, and we did comment during when the town board initially adopted these amendments, we've highlighted this before. The town has approximately 150 megawatts of load for a duration of approximately 8 to 9 hours. So about 150 megawatts, about 1,000 megawatt hours is your peak demand during summertime. The code is simply written in a way that prohibits utility scale from interconnecting into the grid. We need lightning rods. It's a fact. It's an electrical engineering standard that we need for safety purposes. If you truly wish to achieve your 2025 goals of 100% renewable energy within the town, you need utility scale battery storage. And this project has the potential to provide 40% of that. So you're still talking about potentially needing an additional 60% to fill your goals.
Can I ask you, what kind of dialogue do you have with LIPA?
So it's structured in a way where we're often conversing with them through the New York Independent System Operator, which is the nonprofit organization that actually manages and designs and plans the grid. And then LIPA and PSE&G Long Island are the transmission owner that actually own the transmission infrastructure.
You're not in direct
We are,
discussion.
but it often happens with NISO on the phone or nearby. But we are conversing with PSE&G Long Island contacts on a regular basis for the planning of the project.
So is it your understanding that LIPA and PSEG have no plans to increase substations in the east end of Long Island in the Hamptons?
Increase substations as in build a new substation?
Yeah.
unless there was a need for that, but that's actually the purpose of battery storage, is to alleviate the need for additional
Well, you
transmission
can't
upgrades.
have one without the other. It's like separating the front of my hand to the back of my hand.
Well, they-
You can't have a battery storage system without having a substation.
Well,
It
they-
doesn't work.
They are putting in another line to support the wind farm. Right now, they're working.
LIPA.
LIPA is, they're working on, they want to run the line under the Long Pond Green Belt.
And Wayne Scott and.
Well, this is actually through the, it's
Oh, you're
going
talking about
through the green belt.
The overhead.
Yeah, this is the underground. They're
Right.
putting in another line to be able to carry all the extra electricity that's coming in
Right.
from the wind farm. They've been ripping up.
And that's highly
s-
controversial.
Southampton Village right now, putting it in. So they are, but anything they do, they're getting all kinds of pushback. So it's.
It's extremely difficult to build more transmission and more substations, which is why siting along existing transmission lines makes sense, and which is what we're trying to achieve here.
You know, first off, it's nice to meet in person.
It really
Doing
is.
everything over
It's a
Zoom.
pleasure.
It's nice to
It
have
really
you
is.
for a little bit of this. And obviously, you folks have been working this very hard. You know, our board, I think, and Anthony have been, you know, really good in expressing, you know, different perspectives, and you've been, you know, presenting your point of view pretty well. But, you know, when I was in the private sector, one of the good things was that we were flexible, and when we had to make changes, we made changes. And we usually had a plan B. You know, I don't mean to speak for the whole board, but I think kind of what, you know, what's going on here is if, you know, maybe there's a plan B somewhere that maybe isn't quite as good from your perspective as what you're presenting to us. But it might be good to maybe try to take another look. I mean, I get the sense we want to work with you, and we
Yeah.
do support, you know, the goals.
Absolutely.
You know, if there's a plan B idea somewhere, you know, maybe you want to think about that too, you know.
I mean, in this particular case, you know, look, you know, the question is, you know, what is the, I'm using incorrect terminology, but, you know, what is the green benefit versus the potential impacts that you identified? Is it visual or public health and safety, noise, the clearing of the vegetation adjacent to the core preservation area? You know, I don't know a lot about these, you know, lithium battery, you know, what the chemical makeup is on the inside, but if you do have a lightning over voltage, by the way, do we have potential for chemicals to seep into the ground? So, you know, it's you know, it's that type of way. What is the actual green benefit versus what are the impacts, and are we, you know, that's sort of one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a philosophical conversation, but we have a code that we are challenged to not suggest that maybe you need to look someplace else.
So just talking really briefly through the three essentially variances that we are requesting. It's the overhead connection to the back of the property along the existing overhead transmission infrastructure. We're talking about pulling in an existing overhead line 50 feet into the substation and back out. No visual impact to the community. We've demonstrated that during our visualizations, and we've actually kicked off the off-leaf conditions as well. We're fortunate enough after the public hearing to have time to take those photos as well, and those should be completed soon. So from our perspective, that's a minimal impact. We understand it's a variance against an adopted code amendment that was recently adopted, but from our perspective, there's already an overhead transmission line running to the back of the property. We're simply pulling that into our project and back out. The second variance, the wall, we understand that it's not, there's not a 12-foot permissible use for a 12-foot wall at this time. But if you look at the visual impact, we're maintaining 85 feet of existing vegetation in front of that wall. So from a visual perspective, we're having the 85 feet of vegetation, additional landscaping. From our end, again, very minimal impact, and it supports us complying with the sound code.
What is the noise of the facility if you were to put a 6-foot fence there? I mean, the point is that you're saying, I think what you're saying is you need a 12-foot wall to block out the noise.
Any utility scale BESS, battery energy storage system within the town is going to need a sound wall in order to comply with the local sound ordinance.
Right, so there is a sound issue.
For any
I
project,
think-
anywhere in
I mean,
town.
I hear you're very skilled at presenting the positives, and we're trying to tell you what our code is and what special exception standards that guide us. And so, the question is, you've come in with a 50 megawatt? Okay, that's very large. That's the largest we've looked at, right?
So I believe
Have you had
the other, sorry to interrupt, the other application in front of you is 100 megawatts for 200 megawatt hours. So actually the function of the size of the battery energy storage system component is driven by the duration of the project. So in this case, we're proposing a 50 megawatt system for 8 hours. Essentially that means we can inject 50 megawatts into the grid for up to 8 hours. We've proposed that duration because, especially in the East End, there's a need for a 6, 7, 8 hour duration energy load, so we propose that. It's very well possible that if you're willing to work with us at this location, we can reduce the duration of the system, so it'd still be a 50 megawatt project, but it could be 6 hours, or if we have to go down to 4 hours. And the substations would remain in place, but the scale of the project could be decreased.
What would that do to your necessitating the 12-foot wall? Would that bring down that? You wouldn't need that?
The problem is the battery containers are 10 feet high, right? So the purpose of the 12-foot wall is because anything lower than 10 feet is not going to have any mitigation benefit. There will need to be some sort of mitigation, and the wall for us is the most efficient and effective
Why
way
do they
do
have
that.
to be 10 feet high?
The battery storage containers, like the enclosures where the batteries are in.
Can't make them smaller or
No.
put less in them
No,
to
we
make
can't.
them smaller?
It's basically an industry standard at this point.
Are there any subsurface?
There's a ground grid for safety purposes, so similar to the lightning rods, there's a ground grid. Any electrical infrastructure has some sort of grounding component, so that would be the only subsurface component other than the underground lines that are connecting all of the battery containers to the substation.
Because we're going to go through the subdivision report. Look, I hear what the applicant's saying, I hear what the board's saying, but the purpose of the report is for the board to identify the issues to the applicant, and then the applicant can go
Right.
in.
I mean, we have some substantive issues here.
Just to pick up back, you were saying that you're working on new renderings with the leaves, like in fall time, so you can see the leaves. Can I suggest that you also do a rendering of where the A-frames are gonna be on that section of the lot and showing what that would look like? Forgetting I'm just in general, right? It's more like an elevation, so we can see that. Yeah, I don't know if you've gotten to that plan yet, of what that looks like.
The visualizations will include all of the
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying look at it from behind the trees. I just like to see what that looks like as an elevation if you were standing next to it.
Okay.
How high does it look, and show how it interconnects, where the wires interconnect into overhead wires as well.
Okay.
To the LiPo, I think that will help us all to kind of really see what we're looking at too, because right now, it's kind of abstract, right?
Right, yeah, understood.
So I'm going to make a suggestion that may or may not fly. I think that the town board needs to do a master plan on where these facilities should be located in our town. And so that's the starting point. We're starting at the fifth car of the train with the planning board, and if you see our guidance is full of holes, it is so. So I'm going to request that the town board, and we send a resolution.
I would strongly support that.
Good.
Talk about that.
Good.
Almost like an energy overlay in a sense.
Absolutely.
And really determine,
Absolutely, determine the
I know that
locations.
They've started to look at that for the town itself to try to put in their own, with using a third party to bring energy. And that they've identified some spots they thought, and they found out they had different kinds of easements on them.
Right.
And so it precluded their use, so.
Right.
But for us to then suggest that they continue this project.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, you're going to be so restricted as to the parcels that you could target based on the proximity to existing lines. And then you'll come to appointed boards like ours where, we're not experts on grid. and you'll run into this situation where we're clearly uncomfortable with just about all of it. You know,
And
It's-
potentially what will happen here is what's already happening, right? That you, availability of land,
Mm-hmm.
availability of grids, that you're gonna have all these buildings, all these facilities with potential problems, right? There are potential problems if you have an accident and fire and safety and proximity to things, being clustered into one hamlet or one or two hamlets to feed the entire South Fork of Long Island.
Right.
And, that's not fair in the community to have all these things clustered in one community when,
Right.
because of cost issues.
So let me give you just a little example of what we've gone through over the years with planning and cell towers. Okay, Long Island, at the east end, we are flat. We're a glacial outwash, we're flat. So anything above 12 feet is visible. So some years back, new technology for cell towers was proposed. And they were a series of small antennas based much closer together. And the ideal location for them was on top of the poles, LIPA's poles, the telephone poles, of which we have a gazillion. They would not allow anything on their poles, and so the plan died. My point is that there's technology out there that is always improving, increasing, reducing in size, as that was. So I don't know your business, you know it. You know it very well. Maybe there's something that is more suitable for a very constrained geography. We are very constrained on the east end of Long Island, as well you know. So, I mean, I just offer that in terms of trying to be creative. And with cell tower applications, we require alternatives. We say, what other sites have you checked between point A and point B that you could locate your antenna on top of a steeple, on top of a flagpole, whatever. But the only factor that I hear you're presenting is proximity to a substation. And that is really limiting.
Extremely limiting. Makes my job extremely hard.
It does. And it makes our job hard.
And we did submit some documentation from our GIS team. There was a number of overlay maps. I think we looked at every parcel within the town within, I think it was 500 feet or something like that. I have the criteria that we use to filter all these out. And we've physically been to most of those sites. We've prospected on the ground. We've done a number of different studies online. There's a handful of parcels that make sense, and I understand it's extremely difficult, and it's a new nascent technology and use that you were all trying to understand. From our perspective, this is a suitable site. It's a safe use. We're going to apply with all safety codes, and it's going to have really minimal impact to the community once it's online, but I understand your concerns.
Right, and your knowledge is that there are not now new systems that are coming into play, new mechanisms,
Battery
smaller?
storage is the most energy-dense resource you can have to store power on the grid today.
No, I understand, but I'm talking about the actual physical box, the size, as things have changed. We once had cell towers that were huge lattice cell towers with external co-locators. Now, they're single poles, everything is internal, you have no external co-locations. So things change, and I guess I'm asking you if anything is moving in your direction.
It's exponentially getting easier and better and cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, from a technology perspective, the battery storage component is extremely, it's pretty straightforward. It's a very clean box. There's battery modules racked inside of that. There's data aggregation system that's sending data real time so that we can inform it when to charge and discharge. But it's inside of this container and liquid cooled, so there's no exterior mounted HVAC unit. There's nothing like that. The most impactful component is connecting to the existing high voltage infrastructure, the substation.
Absolutely.
And that is something that is not going to change other than potentially routing as much of the transmission infrastructure underground, which, you know, we've proposed to you and basically stated if we can get it approved, we will interconnect the substation underground, but that is to be determined at a later point in time in the study
And
process.
that's a LIPA decision.
That's a PSE&G Long Island LIPA
Yeah.
decision. Yes.
I mean, we use them interchangeably.
But,
Yes,
so we end up in the same kind of
Yeah.
circular
Yeah,
thing here again. We
circular.
work in the process, but it's subject to LIPA and PSE&G, and we have no real control over, right?
No. You know, and
So-
certainly once you subdivide the property
Yeah,
and
then
you
you-
turn that over to
you're in
LIPA,
approval subject
we
to
have no
LIPA.
control, just like you would have no control.
We have some control, we don't have
But, yeah.
normal control.
Yeah, not normal control.
But the substation itself would be an accessory, I understand it can't be permitted as an accessory use in its own lot, but the purpose of the substation is specifically to interconnect into the grid for this
Yeah,
specific
we
purpose.
understand
We
that.
understand that, but we're putting a round peg in a square hole in our code.
Right.
That-
Yeah. So, Anthony, what are you suggesting? How do we?
You know, you know, we have everything on record because we still got to do this subdivision one, which won't be much easier. You know, look, I'd recommend that you adopt the pre-submission conference report. It gives the applicant plenty of, you know, direction.
Information,
Yeah.
right.
I think.
Right. And also, we can send, if everybody on the board is agreeing, a request to the town board to engage in a master plan for battery storage units in the town. And maybe use some of your research, you know, you've done a lot of research. They might tap into that. I don't know.
So,
You spoke
So-
at the town public hearing about the code?
We did comment on the code. We made a number of suggestions that would potentially accommodated this project. I guess the question is I know you guys had a work session with your planning department, who has also worked closely with NYSERDA and the Clean Energy Siting team, which ultimately informed the code amendment that the town board adopted. What were if you don't mind me asking, the takeaways of that discussion
We were
about?
just trying to understand
Okay.
better.
It really raised more questions than answers.
Okay.
It's like
Well
scratching the
said.
surface of a very, very complicated and multifaceted issue. So it's,
Right.
to get it in one little quick
Yeah.
presentation
maintain
is
it.
not really fair. And nothing to do with you, it's just an unfair ask.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I suggest my reading, my reading of the code, and I was involved in the code being drafted or the public hearings. You know, we went from, you know, a small amount to a medium amount, and we stopped at 600 kilovolts. And to 600 kilovolts to 50 megawatts seems like this quantum leap. I question, you know, I've just wondered if that was in fact considered by the town board, that we having utility scale.
I
Solutions
don't,
like
clearly by the way the code was written, I don't think so.
Yeah, because
No.
the 600 volts limit even seems to suggest that you take an industrial building and industrial parking, you're looking to do battery storage for your building.
Behind the meter.
Right, behind the meter. Or if you wanted to go bigger than that, you know, to go from 600 kilovolts to 50 meg, you know.
Megawatts,
Which is
yeah.
why
It's
it was
just-
also not defined in a specific zoning.
Zoning
area,
or
because
zoning
the
or
idea was
location, you know.
it was gonna be
So,
smaller scale.
Mhm.
and I don't know if there's a way to encapsulate a request for something like that in the town board
Right.
thing.
Anthony, can you just make a note of that?
What's that?
What George just said, that the scale that the code, when it was
Didn't
written,
envision that type of
did
stuff
not
based on.
accommodate
Did
that,
it,
yes,
We
yes.
might need, we need to revisit the code.
Can I ask a
Bring your
question? You
notes.
don't have to answer. I'm just curious, but again, you're not required to answer it if you don't want to. With these two parcels that you're working on right now, is that something that your company has purchased outright right now? You have it on account, you know,
So we have a
pending.
We're making we're spending a lot of money on
Yeah,
this
yeah,
project, including land option payments. So we secured land control in May of 2020 for a multi-year purchase option, which essentially we make payments during the period, allows us to develop the study. We're paying engineering and permitting consultants for the physical
Yeah.
design and applications, and then we're making significant payments to the ISO to study our project. But yeah, it's multi-year development process, and includes a purchase option of the land.
And it's a new industry for us here, and so we're, we're having a hard time understanding, which is why we had that one training session, which really,
We had, as council said, we
Yeah.
had more questions
Yeah.
than were answered. Where do you have other projects that you've developed throughout
So-
your state?
So we own and operate the largest battery energy storage project in the state. That's a 20 megawatt facility in Stillwater, New York, which was built in 2018.
20 megawatt.
20 megawatts.
This is 50.
50 megawatts.
and where is
We have-
Stillwater?
In Stillwater is outside of Albany, Saratoga, Albany area.
And how many acres?
It's about 1.5. As I noted before, the function of scale of the project is a function of the duration. So this is a 20 megawatt facility, but it's a short duration project. It's serving what's called frequency regulation on the grid. So unlike this project that we're proposing, which would essentially be storing offshore wind energy that once it comes online for multiple hours, that project is doing quick synapses of power to maintain the frequency on the grid. So we have different projects providing different functions to the grid. Our other project is in Orange County. It's contracted with the utility. It's a 3 megawatt, 12 megawatt hour system. So 3 megawatts, relatively small, but 4-hour durations. And that's what's called a non-wires alternative. And essentially the purpose of that project is to offset transmission constraints, specifically thermal overloads on the grid, to avoid additional expensive transmission infrastructure that would have been rate-based through to the ratepayers. So to your question about can we build more substations? Yes, but then the ratepayers are going to have to pay for that. Long Island has the second most expensive energy rates in the country. We're trying to get that down through offshore wind and storage rather than massive transmission build-out.
May I ask where the facility, aside from the fact that it's outside Albany, what kind of land is it on? What is it zoned for?
So that was built in 2018, and it was an industrial park located next to a substation. The Orange County project is definitely in a more residentially dense area.
It's tiny.
Tinier. And then we're constructing another 20 megawatt facility in Buffalo area right now, utilizing the same technology that we're proposing to utilize here. So we've come a long way between technology in 2018, 2019 already to today. It's become quite efficient and much
Right. Well, that's interesting
cleaner.
background. Yeah, so you proposed a 50 megawatt facility here to facilitate this 6 or 8 hour peak. And that information was given to you by LIPA?
So we run our own analysis. It's informed by PSE&G and Long Island's needs, but essentially we take a really hard look at what the New York grid is going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and
Of the New York grid. What about
all-
out here?
so
East-
specific
East
to-
end of Long Island.
So it's
That's-
specific to Long
How
Island.
was
Right
it
now,
built?
we have approximately 5.5 gigawatts of peak energy need on Long Island. So that means we have about 5,500 megawatts. Right now, essentially all of that is provided by fossil generation. Because Long Island is indeed an island, there's something called the locational capacity factor. It means depending on how much transmission you can bring in from other regions, New Jersey, upstate New York, the city, whatever it may be, there's a reliability factor. Long Island's an island, so they're required to procure 98% of their energy load through installed capacity on the line. That means 98% of your load needs to be installed or injected into the grid. Right now, that's through pretty large steam units contracted with National Grid and some peaker units to accommodate fluctuations and demand periods. Those contracts are all expiring within the next 5 or so years. And in replace of that, we're expecting significant amount of offshore wind to inject into the grid, multiple gigawatts, and then the balance of that to kind of be storage and other clean energy resources with the goal of supporting the state's goals, which is 70% renewable energy integration by 2030 and 100% by 2040. And that's going to require significant deployment of energy at scale across the island, including probably, you know, in my opinion, thousands of megawatts of storage.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
thank you for that. It's,
we'll adopt this, the pre-app report for the site plan. Anthony wants to go over the pre-app on the subdivision. I mean, we're looking at them side by side. So, Anthony, do you want to do that, and then we'll adopt it?
Well, why don't you could do the adoption of the pre-submission conference report,
Okay,
and then we could do the subdivision.
okay. So, do I have a motion to adopt? Motion by Gloria, and second by?
Second.
Second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. So we've adopted that. You've got a lot of good information in here. Anthony worked really hard on this report. We appreciate it. So you want to do the
Yeah,
tulip
you
plan?
can stay there,
Okay.
gentlemen. Then the subdivision, which I handed out to you. So obviously, we know what the purpose of the subdivision of the properties are, so we don't have to waste the time again. In the pre-submission, or the pre-application report, again, it's a minor subdivision, no cluster plan, it's not a residential project. Conformance with zoning, we identified the zoning issues in the previous report. Secra here, I made a mistake in this part of the report, because I said that the subdivision alone, in this case, would be a type 2 action, but Secra, we don't segment, so you gotta look at the project as a whole. But the type 2 pertains to residential subdivision, so I think it would be an unlisted action,
Unlisted,
no matter
unlisted.
what happens.
You have that, unlisted.
Yeah, it's just the first part I made a mistake on, where I say that the subdivision alone would be a type 2. That's not
Okay,
accurate.
okay.
Again, the public comments we received and went over. Long Island Workforce Housing Act's not applicable. We do referrals in this case, so the engineer came back with some engineering comments. Again, it's going to require a speedies permit in this particular case. That's probably the biggest takeaway.
Even though this is not a residential subdivision, this is, you know, so a lot of these standards that the departments that we refer to as saying don't really apply.
Don't really apply, but you do need a speedies in this case.
Yes,
Over an
you need
acre, over an acre of disturbance.
Yeah.
Anthony, number one on the engineer thing, just to make sure I'm clear. Talks about encroachments of neighboring property owners. That's the neighbors have encroached on this property?
Yeah, I didn't, I haven't verified that, so, but yes, I believe it's the neighbors encroaching on here.
Okay, all right.
We get that a lot during the subdivision process.
Okay.
Southampton Office of Fire Prevention, really, they noted that they'll do a larger review at the time of a formal site plan application, which they'd be more concerned with the site plan than the subdivision in this case. DPW sent a strange referral comment back. It says, we're withholding our comments for a period of 10 days, but then they never gave me any further comments, so. But however, they do have to do another referral at FEMA, and they're ultimately gonna have to issue some type of curb cut.
For a
permit,
curb cut,
so-
right.
So, they can't hide. Trails Advisory Board indicated that there are no trail implications, but as I pointed out to this board, which I should put in here, about the town's bike path in the back is contemplated, so I should note that in there. We didn't get comments from the CAC Health Department or the Highway Department. So the recommendations, again, this is being reviewed concurrently with a site plan application, which is where the bulk of the issues lie. 2, again, raises the issue about the subdivision component and the zoning issues in terms of 0 setbacks and the underlying use of the point of interconnection substation. 3, again, goes back to the Hamptons Corridor Strategic Plan. So we're putting aside the best facility, any subdivision of the HB property would need to account for the cross-access and the bike access in the back. 4 talks about the secret review, so we've already indicated the potential for a pos deck there. Building envelopes would need to be shown on the map.
Yeah, you need only one O in the 2.
Oh, so, yeah, okay. I'll fix that. Thank you.
2.
It shows a Lilco easement only covering a portion of the property. My thought is if doesn't cover the whole back part.
Yeah, it's interesting, like portions of their easement are, they own it, and then portions it's encumbered property, so.
Gotcha. All right, so we'll clarify. I just want to make sure that the proper legal,
It's where the railroad and
It gets interesting.
that gets really fuzzy, which is which on different
This
parts
is
where
some
it's
serious
adjacent to
title.
the railroad track.
so I just raised it as a question.
Right.
The width, I put these as discussion items, but they're showing a shared access right on the subdivision map. That would be for both the best facility and and for PSEG, correct? Is that why it's?
Yes, yeah, the purpose was to limit impact by having a shared drive that
One
then
drive, one
splits.
curb cut.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
And we can also accommodate the bike path and the requested walking curb cut, sidewalk as well.
I just asked about the width of the flag strip. Was there a reason why that width was 60 feet as opposed to? I was just curious if there was any.
In the subdivided
In the subdivided
parcel,
piece.
John,
I don't know exactly why we chose that, but I'm not sure if there was really a firm reason, but I think it was just that we wanted to have adequate setback from the roadway that actually runs inside that flag
Okay.
to the neighboring property, which is the car wash and pool supply store.
Gotcha. Okay, so I was just, that's okay. It wasn't a huge issue. Like I said, most of the issues pertain to the site plan. And then obviously the engineering and public safety comments and health department. Like I said, the subdivision part here is not a complicated subdivision. It's the site plan. That's
Exactly.
so I would recommend also then the approval of the pre-application report.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the subdivision pre-app. Motion by George, second by Gloria, and all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. So you have both reports, and thanks for your
Thank you
time
very
and
much.
having a good
thank
discussion
you all,
with us.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Anthony, can you draft some language for us for the next meeting, perhaps, to the town board, recommending a master plan for battery storage facilities throughout the town? And include George's comment about that the code does not accommodate the various sizes?
Right, yeah, they've got the.
Okay.
yeah.
And maybe we can adopt that and get it to the town board. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Just real quick then, on number 11, that's an extension of the secret action deadline.
Wait,
to
wait,
June
wait, wait,
23rd.
wait, wait. 11 is 911 Flanders, that's been adjourned again,
Yeah, secret determination extended until June 23rd.
till June 23rd. Okay, motion?
Motion?
Motion by Gloria, second by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy.
And then Kim Lester's off the agenda.
Number 12 is off,
That's all I have.
and that's all you have. Are you on tonight?
I am on tonight.
Okay.
My day doesn't end.
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by
I choose anybody.
by Craig, second by George, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 1 absent, 1 vacancy. So we're adjourned till 7 o'clock.
Anthony, you
Are
did
we-
a
are
really
we-
good job.
Are we-
Yeah, that was the
Are
main-
we off?
We off, Patty?
You're off.
You sure it's blinking, right?
It's blinking, yep.
That is off.
Okay, we're
And
off.
we can leave all this stuff here, right?
Yeah, we-
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not
we
being
can-
recorded
now,
anymore?
what about, no, we're not being recorded. So, is there anything controversial, just I think the horse farm, the Campbell?
Horse farm, those always bring out people.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
So I think just the
You're
horse
right.
farm.
Okay.
A few times
So
I've had-
Anthony,